4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right. Turn this off.
Wow, all got quiet.
I'd like to draw your attention to the left side of the room to Miss Maria if you need interpretation services.
Buenas tardes a todos. Si tienen necesidad de intérprete, estaré traduciendo simultáneamente. Pueden pasar por un dispositivo acá al frente y antes de irse pueden pasar a dejármelo también. Gracias.
Thank you. Well, welcome to the Modesto City Schools 1424th regular board meeting, 19th of February 2019. This meeting is now called to order. This meeting is being videotaped. You can view the video of this meeting or past meetings on our website. In closed session, the board gave direction to its negotiations and the legal counsel. There was no other reportable action taken. Please stand and join me for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, I'd like to please welcome our students from Sonoma Elementary who will lead us in the flag salute tonight. Gavin Flanders, 6th grade Gavin, models positive attitude and strong motivation to achieve at the highest levels. He is a student body president, a percussionist in the band, and a member of the Math Blast team and Future Teachers program. Outside of school, he enjoys music, baseball, reading, and writing short stories. Gavin plans to go to college in the UC system, become an author, and write the next best-selling children's book series. Nicely done. 6th grader Maggie Maggie Ware gives 100% of herself, 100% of the time. She is the student body vice president, loves playing flute in the band, and is a member of the Math Blast team. Outside of school, she just enjoys participating in shows at the Gallo Center for the Arts. Maggie plans to graduate from college with a master's degree and become an actress or a teacher. Outstanding. Students, please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I want to call your attention to the fact that if you wish to address the board during the public period for comment on a subject not on the agenda, you must complete a public presentation request card and submit it to the board president prior to the period for public comment. Only those who have submitted cards will be called upon to speak, and no cards will be accepted after the period has begun. Every person who wishes to address the board must fill out a card. You will find the cards in the lobby. We have some exciting things going on at Modesto City Schools, and we want you to turn and share in our recognition and celebration of our amazing staff and students. And before that, I will turn it over to the superintendent for any announcements she may have this evening.
All righty, thank you. Well, first off, welcome everybody. It's great to see a packed house full of students and teachers and community members, and our youngest recognition nominees over there. And we'll get to you in just a few minutes. So thank you for taking a little bit of time. Certainly, participation in this process is exactly what we need. You know, today is an exciting board meeting for me and the work that I've been doing with multiple stakeholders and many of you in the room. And that is this past year, we've really been building a strong foundation from which to do our work next year. And we'll see on the very first board agenda item today is the approval of the mission and the vision and the core values of the board. From this, we then, at our next board meeting, we'll be looking at our goals as a school district as it works to support that vision, mission, and core values. So excited that we're here tonight to be able to get to this place so we can begin the planning for next year as we move forward. So again, thank you all for coming.
All right, so I believe now we'll move down and do some awards and hand out some certificates.
There, I think it's working. All right. Again, thank you all for coming. Tonight, the first part of our board meeting is we always like to stop and recognize good things that are happening within the school district, both on the student side of the house and also the adult side of the house. We are going to start with 3 students who really exemplify strong character recognition in the character recognition program that we have here at Modesto City Schools. And I have to say, in the 6 months that I've been here, I think I've had the two youngest that I've seen tonight. So we are going to start with Allison Minera Pacheco, who is a TK. So that is, for those that don't know, TK, it's the grade before kinder. She is here, and she's being represented by her teacher, Jennifer Borba Gordon, from Burbank Elementary School. And the character trait that we are recognizing her for is compassion.
Allison has already demonstrated so many of the character traits that we hope to instill in all of our students. She just goes above and beyond with her compassion, above what we would expect normally from a 5-year-old. She shows kindness daily to all that she encounters. She assists a little boy with special needs to help him get to class from the cafeteria, and she plays with him in the sandbox, and she's inspired a lot of other students in our classroom to be kind and giving. She's really a model student. She's also helped another student with some behavioral issues to adapt to our classroom setting through her gentle encouragement and friendship. She is an example to students and adults alike, and I'm very proud that we can present this award to you tonight, Allison. Thank you.
Alrighty, thank you. Our next honoree is Nathan Lewis. He's a first grader who has strong perseverance, and the presenter for tonight is teacher Jennifer Kutcher. They are from Fairview Elementary.
I'm kind of nervous, so I'll read. I nominated Nathan for the Award of Perseverance because Nathan has worked really hard and has made huge improvement in his reading skills. In the beginning of the school year, Nathan was unable to read any whole words. Now, after struggling and working really hard and practicing, today Nathan is a reader. On his recent reading fluency test, Nathan was able to read 59 words a minute with 95% accuracy. What a superstar you are, Nathan. Keep up the great work. You have a bright future ahead of you.
Alrighty, and our last honoree tonight is being recognized for courage from Elliott Alternative Education Center by teacher Paul Silva, and the student's name is Maria Elena Sanchez Curl. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
May I see them?
Sure.
Thank you. Maria is a quiet leader, and leaders, we really need more leaders at Elliott. And for all of you who haven't visited us in a while, I would suggest you take a road trip because we're changing up. So our reputation isn't what you think it is. And Maria is one of the new blood, the new leaders. She's always prepared for class, and she consistently demonstrates that she knows the material. She often uses writing assignments to share her core beliefs, courageously speaking out where others remain silent. Maria helps struggling students succeed so we reach our class goals. Her maturity, outstanding character, and leadership are deserving of recognition.
All right, so our next recognition is with our MCS heroes. These are folks in our system, adults or students or parents, community members in our system that really go above and beyond and really help the school district and the students be the best that they can be. The first one is Catherine Schmidig, who is a resource specialist from Beard Elementary, nominated by Katie Raza, the district improvement facilitator.
Hi, my name is Ketty Raza, and we had our last staff meeting, and everybody was talking about how awesome Kathy is, and so I thought this lady deserves an award literally. So Kathy Schmidig, our resource teacher, is an MCS hero because she is a team player and works hard to meet the needs of our students. She has arranged her schedule to support our school-wide intervention. She is always available to provide information that assists me with grouping students as she works so hard on our SSTs. She has attended my intervention training to help provide thoughtful input that complemented my presentations. And while working with students, she is very positive, patient, and encouraging. She truly understands the diverse needs of each individual student. She is happy to support our teachers in providing our special education students with appropriate and practical modifications and accommodations. She has a delightful personality and greets every staff member with a big smile. She makes a point to make a brief, positive connection with everyone she passes in the halls. She is a great asset to Beard, and we are so fortunate to have her.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice. We're going to go like this. We're going to go like that.
I'm trying to get your award up.
And there we go.
Do my best back there. Congratulations.
Next person we're going to recognize tonight is Melody McGill. She's a teacher at Roosevelt and a science curriculum coordinator. She was nominated by Katrina Val Walterworth, both a parent and music educator.
Okay, I'm nervous too. So I did this as I'm a parent and a music teacher, and I get because Mrs. McGill prepares kids, and I do that, and I know what it takes to get your students ready to get them in front of an audience. So now I'll read what I have. Okay. My children are in Mrs. McGill's STEM class at Roosevelt. It's a 0-period class, so these kids want to be there. All I can say is, wow, she is amazing and deserving of MCS Hero. I just witnessed this as Roosevelt participated in the Future Cities competition at SCOE on January 12th. Note that date. We were at the end of our vacation. On December 22nd, she had her 4 teams do their presentations for their families, and some of the people in this room came and visited. I was impressed with what these students were doing. Presentation, collaboration, and critical thinking that went into this project. She also had her Lego robotics team do their thing, which I don't know how these kids do it. Amazing, any kid that does that. It was a really great evening. And all I can say, it must be like running a 3-ring circus in her classroom. Okay. When we were all enjoying week 3 of our vacation, she was at Roosevelt for 4 days with these students from 8 to 2, 9 to 2, getting these kids ready for Future City because their competition was on January 12th. I brought lunch to my kids because I wasn't super prepared. And I was just really impressed. I thought these kids were working really hard the whole week. So then, let's see. Okay, I lost my place. So when they did the presentation at SCOE on January 12th, I saw 3 of the 4 Roosevelt teams. I was very impressed. And impressively, 2 of her 4 teams made it to finals. 1 got first and 1 got third. Yeah, it was good. And these kids presented in a room like this. Yeah. And the other part of this competition, they are questioned by the judges. And so these kids were, they were amazing. So thank you, Mrs. McGill. You're amazing. And we need more MCS heroes like her. And I know we have lots of them out there.
All right, our last recognition is a special recognition, and we're going to ask both the nominee and their administrator to come up and obviously get a picture taken. Employees Making a Difference is a program that is sponsored by the County Office of Education and also the Association for California School Administrators. It really looks to recognize and honor the classified employees within our school district. And tonight we have a total of 5, 2 of which will go to the county for continued movement up within the state. And I'd like them to come up and obviously get your picture taken. First one is nominee Maria thank you. Buenrostro, thank you. Yard duty supervisor at Burbank, and Principal Jim Mendaka will come up and say a few words.
I always chuckle because you come in your high heels, and she doesn't wear high heels when she's on the yard, but Maria is a real special part of our staff at Burbank, and Maria cares for our students, and she's a second mommy for them, and you really do make a difference. Thank you, Maria.
Our next nominee is Brenda Burt, campus supervisor at Enox, and assistant principal Tom Nipper will come up and say a few words.
Brenda got nominated for Making a Difference because she really is an ambassador. She's not only an Enox High School ambassador, she's a student ambassador. She has the thoughts and the encouragement for every student on our campus. She puts them first. Her kind words, her energy, they just flow directly from her. It was a real pleasure to know that she was our nominee as an entire administrative team, not just my own. So with that, you do make a difference, and we're happy to be a part of your team at Enox High School. So thanks.
Thank you. Our next nominee is Brenda Patton, an attendance liaison at Franklin, and Principal Scott Ginsberg will say a few words. Franklins in the house. All righty. Someone's proud out there.
For sure. Well, thank you, Dr. Noguchi. It's a real privilege for me to recognize tonight one of the really great peace builders in our district. In all my years as a school principal, I've never come across anyone who makes more of a difference in the lives of children than Brenda Patton does. Now in her 25th year as the community aid and attendance liaison at Franklin Elementary, Mrs. Patton is the heart and soul of our school community. She's oftentimes heard saying to parents, "You love your babies while they're at home, and we'll love them while they're here at school." Brenda literally makes hundreds of telephone calls to families each week, and she frequently makes home visits when parent contact is difficult. When needed, she transports students to and from school, and she purchases healthy snacks to always have on hand for hungry children. Brenda provides love, encouragement, and support to our students, and she does give the occasional tough love too when it's needed. But make no mistake about it, no child at Franklin ever wants to disappoint Brenda, because they all know how much she loves them. As a former student at Franklin herself, Brenda Patton understands the powerful impact that she can have on the lives of our students. She's a blessing to me, and she's a blessing to all who know her. So Brenda, on behalf of the Franklin families, students, and staff, thank you for being such a peace builder. It's an honor and a privilege for me to work alongside you every day. Congratulations, Brenda. You're the best, kid. Love you.
Congratulations. Thank you.
All right. Our next nominee is Carol Serpa, an accountant technician in career technical education. And administrator, going to say a few words, is Senior Director Jeff Albritton. Hi, Carol. Congratulations.
Thank you, Dr. Noguchi. Very pleased to recognize Miss Carol Serpa, who's been in her office over 30 years. She is an account technician, but she works in career and technical education. And if you're aware of career and technical education, we train our students with job skills ready to go out into the workforce. And it's pretty amazing when we have a vast ag program in our district, as a lot of you know. And Carol very much supports our ag teachers. But when we had a veterinary science teacher ask for a new product, and she goes out and does the shopping and gets the best deal, and I can hear her outside of my door negotiating a lot of times for that best deal, so she's looking out for the district. But in this particular case, she was looking for something specific that the teacher needed for their veterinary science program. Do you remember what that was called?
Breeding Betsy.
What was that?
Breeding Betsy.
It's called a Breeding Betsy. And basically, it's a simulation of a large animal, a Holstein cow, giving birth. And so she had to kind of get all of the information related to that. And that product was in New Zealand. Australia, New Zealand, down under. And that conversation from inside of my office is really when I realized how hard Carol works for all of our students and all of our teachers in CTE education. So she lives it, she breathes it, she supports it, she spends her own money at all the different fundraisers related to CTE education, our ag departments particularly. And we have an incredible program, and a lot of it is because of the work Carol's done over the last 30 years. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And last but not least, the next nominee is Sylvia Valencia de Garcia, a bilingual community aide at Shackelford, with Principal Sue McCann, that's going to say a few words. Quite energetically would be my guess.
All righty. How many parents are here from Shackelford? Teachers, staff members, everybody. So thank you for being here. And I'm going to cry. I know, I'm trying not to. So she is the heart and soul of Shackelford, and I am the lucky recipient of her goodness. And they are as well. And I just adore you. But more importantly, she knows our community. I can't even imagine doing my position without her. If I need to find a parent, a child, a grandparent, a guardian, she doesn't even need to look up the address. She's like, let's go, let's get in the car. So she knows our students, she knows what they need, but just like Brenda, in a beautiful way, she relates to every single staff member, family member, and most importantly, students. And so I never forget going to a home visit, and she saw this mother who didn't have a car, and she was like, oh, she had to go get some medicine. And I'm like, so what, what's the story around here? Where do you get the medicine for these people who don't have any, so she goes, oh no, over down here, there's a place, So this mother who was really sick walking to get her medicine. So she knew exactly how to help this beautiful mother. So on behalf of Shackelford's family and the students, and I can go on and on how she clothes them, how we go and deliver Santa Claus to I think every single student this year received something. And that was definitely not me. It was 100% Sylvia. So I am so grateful that they finally selected you. I guess, Mr. Cantu, are you in here? So I know, there he is. So I'm like, we're going to celebrate Sylvia finally. So we love you and we appreciate everything that you do. And there's no way I could do this position. And on behalf of the staff, thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts.
Nice to meet you. All right, let's please join me in thanking everybody from our littlest learner right here, 5-year-old, all the way to a staff member that's worked at Modesto City Schools for 25 years and actually went through the school that she is now working for. So this is always my favorite time of the board meeting because we get to acknowledge people, we get to recognize people. Modesto City is really a special place, and it's because of everyone that's in the room working together in support of, again, our littlest learner and our 12th grader, wherever our 12th grader just was. There you are. So from TK to 12. So thank you, have a good evening, and appreciate your support tonight.
Yes, and I'm going to move her thing in a minute. I'm moving her down to, I just wrote it.
She's in the final round of
Yes.
mock trial.
B1 is going to move down to B6A after Dr. Okanafua. I'm going to actually just say that we're going to take a break after him and just put it down now. At 6, we're going to take a timeout and let it. Shaw. All right, I think we're good.
Where is she?
Okay, so I gave everybody a chance to clear out there. This brings us to item A6, approval of the consent agenda. I'm going to pull one item for a separate vote, item D3. Are there any questions from board members regarding the consent agenda? Seeing none. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on an item that is on the consent agenda? Bringing it back to the board. So our board protocols and norms require or ask us to explain why we would vote something different. On item D3, I will be voting no because it requires me to say yes to secondary math, which I have a perfect record of saying no to. So on item D3, I'm looking for a motion to approve.
I move approval.
Approved by, are you looking for a second? First by Vice President Marks, seconded by Trustee Newman. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. No. Motion passes 6-1.
Now I move approval of the consent agenda.
And we're looking for a second for the rest of the consent agenda. Trustee West. All those in favor say aye. Raise your hand. Aye. Opposed say no. Passes unanimously. This brings us to the approval of the order of discussion action items. On the order of action item, I'm going to move one item because our student representative, Student Representative Benz, is at a competition tonight. So I'm going to request that we move item B1 to below B6, which is after Dr. Jason Okanafua's report. So B6 becomes B6A, and B1 becomes B6B. With that said, are there any members of the board who wish to speak regarding the order of the discussion action items? Seeing none. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak regarding the order of discussion or action items? Bringing it back to the board, do I hear a motion to approve the order of discussion action items?
So moved.
Trustee Newman, do I have a second? I see Trustee Lopez. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye. Passes unanimously. This moves us on to the period for public presentation. Thank you for attending tonight's meeting. Your attendance shows your interest in our schools, and for that we thank you. The period for public comment is limited to 30 minutes. Time will be allotted equally to individuals based on the number of cards submitted. The maximum for any one speaker is 3 minutes. I also want to remind you that if you wish to make a complaint against a specific district employee, you should follow the district's personnel complaint procedure. Copies of that procedure are also available in the lobby, as are agenda copies, which outline the procedures we will observe during the period for public comment. Before I ask tonight's speakers to address the board, I want to clarify that we may not engage in any discussion on the topics that will be raised because we are legally obligated to provide the public with advance notice about topics that will be boards discussing. Agendas are intended to inform the public about all topics of discussion and action, so anyone interested in a particular subject on the agenda may attend the meeting and address the board. While we cannot engage in discussion on items not on the agenda, I assure you that we will listen attentively to your comments. Again, I thank you for joining us tonight. I believe I counted and I had 9 or 10 cards, and I ask each speaker when I call your name to come to the podium, address the board, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. The first card I have tonight says Liz Jenkins, I believe, if I've got that correct.
Yes. Used to be our student.
Good evening.
Hi there, how are you? Good. My name's Liz Jenkins. I'm a former Byer High School student. Actually, was former student representative to the board.
Oh, nice.
Not like it feels like forever ago now. I brought just some visual aids for you guys to have. On my card, I put school safety. Great. So I attended Byer High School. I wish I could advocate on behalf of all 7 of your high schools, but I don't know their campuses ins and outs as I do Byer. I know they've had some security concerns this year. I know many of you attended the MCS system. Some of you might not be familiar with their campus. When Byer was built, it was open plan. There were no walls and no classrooms and no doors. Later, doors were put in and classrooms were put in as well. But today, there are still classrooms that don't have a door. There's substantial. On your visual aid, the red line is entry to how you can get into all of those classrooms through one point of entry without being stopped. I know I always had a concern about this. Even when I attended, it was a big deal for me. I found out about Sandy Hook in 7th period with a classroom that didn't have a door. And I remember just being extremely frightened. And I know, we know these things happen. And I think it would just be worth looking at what procedures you can place to keep your students safe. I know tonight you're going over your mission statement. I'm sure in there it says, keep students safe. And I just think that this is something to be brought to your attention, and it might not be something that you knew about before. So I just wanted to let you guys know that that was still a concern in the community.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
And it's interesting, we're going to follow a safety comment up with Steve Sandfield, who knows quite a bit about safety, I'm willing to guess.
I'm actually not here for work, so I'm here as Steve tonight. I'm here as a representative of Covenant Grove Church, so I was asked to come speak. I wanted to thank you guys for allowing me to be here tonight, but I wanted to let you know that Covenant Grove Church in 2009, we rented Enox High School from you for 5 years. Some of you were here and you remember that. In 2009, obviously we were having poor economic times, but 44 people left Modesto Covenant Church, and we went over to the new church in Modesto because we wanted to plant another church in the northeast side of town, and Enox was our location. We started weekly services just before Easter in 2010, and thanks to the Modesto City School Board, we were able to rent your space for a total of 5 years. After our contract was up and we spent 5 years of tearing down and folding chairs, we decided it was finally time to be big boys and girls and find our own building. We bought an 11-acre church parcel just down the street at 4825 Roselle. Some of you may know that, just down the street from Enox. We left after growing to 175 people on a Sunday service. We've been there for 2.5, almost 3 years, and now we average about 350 to 400 attendees every Sunday. We're busting at the seams. We have 3 services. We sit in the foyer, we sit in the hallway, and we are in the middle of a church expansion. Probably about a $2.5 million project, but I wanted to come on as a representative because they knew I knew most of you on this board, and let you know, first of all, thank you for allowing us to start at your school facility and grow, and that we are going to be having a reunion celebration on March 17th at 10 a.m. We have re-rented Enox for a reunion celebration, March 17th, 10 a.m. We are going to have a reunion service at Enox, followed by a potluck, so you can come eat. We just wanted you to know it's going to be an amazing time. We wanted to invite you because you have been instrumental, whether you thought so or not, for allowing us to plant a church and grow. We are planning on growing to a 400-seat service and hopefully attend 1,000 people a service at our project. But we just wanted to invite you to that event and just say thank you for bringing families and working to be part of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Tonight's all sorts of good stories. That brings me to, I think, Dwayne Davis, or Davies? I'm trying to read the name. Dewan Davies? Davis? I see a D. It's hard to read here. You know who I'm, there you go. Welcome, sir.
Hi, I'm Dewan Davis. I'm representing Enox's BSU. So I'd like to discuss discuss our BSU, and I have a few letters from our previous members. I'll be reading that to you today. So first off, I'm going to say, dear MCS board members of education, The value of BSUs on high school campuses are very important. My high school BSU taught me many things about my Black history that I did not learn in my U.S. history class. Learning that my Black history did not start at just slavery, but with much more than that. The BSU has gave me opportunities that I did not know of, such as scholarships and grants for African American students, and having a role in leadership, in which I was the BSU president for my junior and senior year of high school. I'm now a sophomore in college, and I'm involved in various clubs and programs in my BSU club at California State University, Dominguez Hills. As a member, I attend various club events that we have on that campus, and I use my past experience as a BSU president to add input on events we have and topics we discuss. BSUs are very important, and without BSU, I would not have had opportunities that I was given while I was getting ready for college. Sincerely, Amanda Bullock, which is a Enox graduate of 2017. And then I also have another letter. Dear MCS school board members, to me, I feel like since going to high school that was majority white, having a BSU was a chance for all of us Black students to meet, since there was only a few of us on campus. Each of us talk about current events and open our eyes to what is really going on in the world. I feel like the UBSUC helped me build connection skills, and it helped me push and strive for a higher education and the importance of getting ready for education. Sincerely, Sylvia Garman, 2017 Enox High School graduate. So, thank you.
Thank you, Dwayne. Dwan. Okay, you know what, guys? I'm trying. Aaliyah Williams. Did I get that right? Yeah. See? I'm 1 for 2.
Hi, I'm Aaliyah Williams, and we're trying to get money for our conference for our state convention in Bakersfield, and I'm going to be reading to you another past BSU members statement. As a club, it accomplished success in academics, success in learning about African American history, and success in coming together as a race to lift each other up and help each other achieve our goals. BSU is about educating ourselves and our peers about our past and planning for our future as African American and American students today in our society. BSU has not only allowed me to bond with other students that are like me, but to discover who I am as a Black individual in America and redefine my purpose in the 21st century America. But it also has allowed me to bond with other Black people that I may have not otherwise talked to around campus. BSU has done fundraisers such as the Applebee's breakfast fundraisers such as the Applebee's breakfast that in turn allows its members to go to conferences and conventions like the UOP Roundtable event and the UBSUC State Conference at Sac State without having to pay out for their own pockets. At these regional and state events and in BSU's own meetings, Enoch students are able to talk about real issues that do plague in the Black community, such as how we feel about gun control, colorism, masculinity versus subdued femininity, and light skin versus dark skin, and the Black community in a comfortable and safe environment with people of lifelike experience. Best regards, Mumby Wimby, Enox High School grad 2018. Thank you.
Thank you. Diana? Writing's light. Fisher. Tell me how to say it so I know.
Deviana.
Deviana. Okay, I was close. Welcome.
Okay, my name is Deviana Fisher, and I am the president of the BSU at Grace Davis High School. And I am here to ask you that you fund us for a BSU state convention coming up this March. The total cost for 12 students to attend would be $2,415.72. Okay, we believe that attending this convention, a door will be open leading to new opportunities for students who attend. Conferences such as this one provides students exposure to college information that is often missed otherwise. Throughout the school year, we often hear go to college and get a degree, but it sometimes is difficult for students to know where to start to be headed in the right direction to actually get that degree. I feel, along with many of my other peers, that these events motivate us to want to go to college and opens our eyes to see getting a college degree is not as impossible as one may perceive at times. At the recent MJC conference, there was a keynote speaker who was a medical doctor. After the conference, he and I had a conversation about graduate school. This was helpful because for the career I want, I will also have to go to grad school. The speaker was very helpful in letting me know what was required to be successful in the program. It made me feel more secure in my education future, knowing that somebody that looks like me also completed the same task. At the state convention, there will be even more exposure to people of various professions who can share their experience and knowledge with all of us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Who was the speaker?
I forgot his name, but Corinthian Tyson.
Thank you. I just curious to know who the speaker was and if that impressed you.
Yeah.
Okay, this was blue ink, so I can read this one. Elisa Sanders.
Hello, my name is Alyssa Sanders, and I attend Grace Davis High School, and I'm the secretary of the BSU program. We're seeking funding for the opportunity for African American students to learn about their culture, future careers, college attainment, and ultimately how to become better leaders. What we're seeking goes beyond mere club funding. Instead of focusing on how to share the African American culture during Black History Month with peers at school, we had to focus on raising funds for an experience that is crucial, impacting, and beneficial for our students to attend. Thank you.
Thank you. Me too, Elizabeth.
Good evening. I am a teacher at Enox High School, and I teach drama as well as English. And so I wanted to speak in behalf of my BSU, which I'm also an advisor of. I noticed the vision here says, our vision, Modesto City Schools. Every student graduates with the skills, knowledge, and character traits essential to thrive and contribute to society. We provide rigorous, relevant, and diverse educational programs that engage and motivate all students to reach their individual potential. That is exactly what my goal is as their advisor, as well as the UBSUC, which is the United Black Student Unions of California, which I'm also the vice president of the Central Region chapter. I wanted to talk about, these kids, first of all, were very brave. I know it's very nerve-wracking to be a young person to come up here and speak. So I want you guys to acknowledge that a lot of them were nervous. And this is their first time speaking, and we wanted them to have that opportunity. But talking about fundraising, our students at Enox fundraised $925. That's through, Applebee's and other types of fundraisers. The site funds were provided by our principal, who's amazing, Amanda Moore. She gave us $625. Our shortfall is $1,500. We are requesting $1,500 to meet the gap. We are continuing in our fundraising efforts, but the time is drawing near that we have to pay, like this week. So Enox BSU is requesting funds so that we can send our kids to this conference. In the years that I've been at this BSU advisor, we have gotten 3 of our students that have gotten scholarships as a result of going to this conference. My daughter in particular had applied to only out-of-state schools, and at the end chickened out. 2017 graduate of Enox High School, and she filled out an entrance card at the convention, which was held in Fresno, and they took her in on the spot as a result of our networking event that day. So I think that our kids are desperately in need of attending this valuable conference. It goes for 3 days. I want to say that Mady Herrera's office has provided us with a bus, but we do still, each one of our clubs, that is Davis, Enox, and Johansson, are in desperate need. We have a shortfall. Some of our students don't have the money to afford, although some, each one of the kids in our club have contributed money out of their own pocket in addition to the fundraising. So we're hoping that you will meet that gap for them. And I hope that you will know that each one of our students work tirelessly, and each one of our students that time's running out. Each one of my
Don't worry about it.
Each one of my past presidents are now attending a school. The letters that you wrote that were written, I have 2 twins that were foster students that are at Cal State Dominguez Hills. They would not be there if it wasn't for our club. My own daughter, like I said, would not be at Fresno State if it wasn't for the interest card that she put in, and they took her in February. We know that Cal State schools do not take anybody in February. I have 3 students at Spelman, which is, I don't know if you are well aware of Spelman. 3 of my past leadership students were president and vice president and treasurer, are now currently getting ready to graduate, and one just entered last year as a freshman. So I'm just saying that I know that we have a proven track record. Come see me when I'm not on the time clock. I can tell you about all of the success that I've had with each one of my kids in leadership. And they got that training through going to this convention and other things that we've done at our school. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I believe we're looking for your counterpart at Davis now, Mr. Rucker.
All right. Good evening, board members. My name is Ronaldo Rucker. I'm a teacher and BSU advisor at Grace Davis High School. I'm also a parent of an 11th grade student at Byer High School. I want to first thank you for recognizing our 2016 Grace Davis High School BSU for receiving the State BSU of the Year Award back in 2016, and that was at Fresno State. Ms. Garman was speaking on that. Today, we are seeking funding to continue to encourage our students to excel as leaders and to find their career and college path, which was mentioned earlier. I want to share the following statement from last year's Grace Davis High's BSU president, Avivia Gray, and her sister is now a sophomore at Davis High School, and hopefully she gets to afforded this opportunity. The UBSUC State Convention showed me that the sky truly is the limit for young black students like me. With the guest speakers, educational workshops, and networking with students from all over California, attending my first state convention set the tone for the rest of my high school career. It made me feel as though I had great things to look forward to, which made me work harder. Being a part of BSU and the UBSUC, and she was an officer for the regional board as well, being a part of BSU and the UBSUC has played a vital role in my attendance at Georgia State University. I hope all BSU students can take advantage of opportunities to attend events such as this. Now, lastly, so this is me speaking. Our students are working on a BSU regional project titled College Engagement Initiative. They have attended multiple events and trainings to develop this initiative. They are preparing a presentation to present at the state convention held at CSU Bakersfield. We would like to request time on the next agenda to present our findings and other successes of BSU. So we have an annual equitable resolution on how we support these leadership opportunities for our students. I look forward to supporting our students with my BSU colleagues. So we have Nicole Evans from Johansson. She's here. Elizabeth Garman, you've already heard her speak. They work tirelessly as regional officers and advisors to create these equitable opportunities for our students. And we also have Angela Drew. She's a parent at Enox, and she's on the UBSUC regional board, and she's helping create these opportunities as well. So thank you, school board members, for your time.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. And I think it's especially important when our students come and speak. That's always something that gets all of our attention and is appreciated. And I think it may be especially so tonight since we have a parent at Davis, a parent at Enox, and I've also attended your fundraisers at Fuddruckers. So again, thank last year. I didn't know about this year. But again, thank you for taking the time and the courage to speak. It's important, and it wasn't, you were heard. Thank you again. And if I don't say you're welcome, my mom will get after me when I get home. Did I miss one? Did I miss somebody? They're telling me they think I missed somebody. Jua? June? I've got a J. Jim. All I can read is a J. Thomason? Jim Thomason? I'm sorry, sir. I must have turned 2 cards at once.
You're giving my wife fuel for her complaints about my handwriting.
No worries.
All
Welcome,
right.
sir.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I'm here to recommend the board eliminate the academic eligibility requirement for participation in extra and co-curricular activities. I would like to ask the board to consider this action on the following 3 grounds. First, educational. Statistical evidence demonstrates that participants in sports and other extracurricular activities earn better grades than non-participants and record better attendance in school. Those who do not earn better grades may lack targeted support or differentiated instruction rather than lacking effort, which is implied by the no pass, no play rule. Second, developmental. Many educators assert that high school athletic and non-athletic activities are not only supportive of the academic mission of schools, but are inherently educational and vital to the total development of students. These educators further argue that athletic participation develops many basic values such as self-esteem and self-respect, and that denying the opportunity to participate in extracurricular activities is effectively denying a valid educational opportunity. Third, legal. The state of California holds education to be a fundamental right. The state Supreme Court held all educational activities, curricular or extracurricular, offered to students by school districts fall within the free school guarantee of Article 9, Section 5. It is interesting to note that Chief Justice Byrd, in a concurring opinion, also found the plan to violate the equal protection guarantee of the California Constitution. She found that educational extracurricular activities, like their credit-generating counterparts, promote the constitutionally recognized purpose of the public education. Accordingly, they are encompassed within the concept of education as a fundamental interest. And I'd like to add a personal note. My daughter, Janessa, is a senior at Bayer High School and was a member of the girls' varsity basketball team. During her 4 years, she has maintained her eligibility through engaged teachers and school administrators who recognized Janessa's unique learning style and were able to accommodate her, though she had no formal special education eligibility. In the semester that just ended, Janessa encountered what we call, my wife and I, the perfect storm. She had several teachers with whom her learning style did not connect, who did not interact with her to provide accommodation, and who did not communicate with us as so many others had. As a result, Janessa lost her eligibility with only 4 games left in the regular season. This also cost her a probable spot on the all-league team. The humiliation she experienced has done nothing to promote her academic achievement. In fact, we are working now to prevent the opposite effect. I entreat the board to remove the academic eligibility requirement for participation in extra and co-curricular activities as a way of better promoting a more well-rounded education for our students and as a way of keeping anyone else from what Janessa experienced. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I apologize for missing your name earlier.
Sorry I didn't write it clearly.
Okay. I believe that corrects my one mistake and takes us to B1, which is our student board education report. We've moved. For my fellow board members, unless there's an objection, I'd like to just sort of plan our break tonight. After B6, after Dr. Akanafua speaks, take a 15-minute break so that we sort of know when it is tonight. Sure. Dr. West?
Sorry, I just had a quick question to clarify. Maybe Miss Garman, she's at the back. The money that's being requested, is it a different amount for each of the 3 schools, or the number we were quoted was that all of the students?
It's a different amount for each one, and if we need to provide any documentation, more than happy to do that.
And there's only 3 schools that we're looking at right now that's requesting funds?
That is correct. We have current active BSUs.
Johansson. As a matter of fact, we have in leadership, we're gonna, no matter, I have to go beg in the streets. We're gonna get money for our, we have a position, a central region officer that is at Enox as well as at Johansson. We have to make sure that they attend. And so what will happen is that some of the kids that desperately need, like my freshman and my sophomore, to need to see, what is beyond these, this town, what other, people are doing outside of Modesto, and have that experience to network with the universities. I'm telling you, we meet admissions counselors every time we go to a convention. It is at a university, and they are missing out on a huge opportunity. We have, we want to take as many as we can to expose them, basically. And so we'll have to limit our numbers if we don't get funding, basically. I'll have to tell a lot of kids they can't go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've moved our student board report. MTA has already told me they don't have a report. Thank you, Mr. Burton. CSEA report. I don't see anybody, so we're moving rapidly here. That takes us to B4. Which is the approval of Modesto City Schools' vision, mission, and values, which feels like Superintendent Noguchi.
I alluded to earlier at the beginning of the meeting. This is really just the foundation from which we are going to build from beginning tonight and then moving forward with subsequent board meetings as well, or board meetings next to. I think that the information that I got from you and the feedback that you gave me on the special board meeting on February 5th is depicted in here. Certainly we can open it up to any other changes or modifications or any changes that you need to do, but at this time I'm asking for approval of the vision, the mission, and core values.
Any questions from members of the board? Questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, back to the board for comments. Seeing none, I'll make one. I think this is a big deal. It may not seem like it to folks, but I think that this culminates a good part of 6 months of work. And we've done special board meeting after special board meeting, board team building, governance team building. We had input from members of cabinet, trustees, Mr. Burton, members of CSEA, senior directors. This is the work of a lot of folks and a lot of time, and I think it shows the commitment that everybody brought to the table, and that in one way or another everybody's voice is represented here in some shape or fashion. And I appreciate the time and work everybody put into it, and I'm proud of the work we came up with. Thank you everybody for your help and participation. Trustee Newman.
And I just want to thank Superintendent Noguchi for engaging us in this process. I think that we had a mission statement that was there before, and it wasn't something that was an effort by the board. And so this was something that we all came together, and I appreciate the effort of the board to kind of wordsmith together.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a valuable process, and in turn a more usable document in the end. Thank you.
My microphone. It's been a long day. With that being said, I'm looking for a motion to approve. I got So moved by Trustee Newman, seconded by Trustee Lopez. All those in favor say aye. Raise your hand. Aye. Passes unanimously. Well done. Takes us on to item B5, which is a report on Modesto City Schools discipline and attendance. I believe this is going to drift over to Ms. Mack or Mr. Miller I see coming.
Tonight, Educational Services will provide a report on our discipline and attendance. Although we have room to grow, we are seeing improvement in both discipline and attendance. And tonight, our Director of Child Welfare and Attendance, Ed Miller, will present.
Okay, let me get this mic. Good evening, Board President Walker, trustees, Superintendent Noguchi, and Cabinet. Excuse me one sec. The purpose of tonight's presentation is to provide an update on student suspensions and expulsions, student attendance, efforts to improve discipline and attendance. Then we'll take a look at our next steps, and I'll answer any questions. Before we look at the discipline data, it's important to know that Modesto City Schools is committed to creating an environment where students experience positive educational outcomes while at the same time maintaining safe schools and orderly learning environments. For the past 7 years, our district has been on a mission to reduce suspensions and expulsions for students of all ethnicities. This has been largely accomplished through the use of interventions and alternatives to suspension. The first data chart we will look at is home suspensions by ethnicity. This report indicates total incidents where a student received a home suspension. Starting with the 2010-11 school year and moving to the right, you will notice a significant decline for all ethnicities. As a matter of fact, you can look at any of the student ethnicities in this chart and you'll see that home suspensions have been reduced by at least 60% or more. The small chart at the far right shows enrollment and number of students suspended by ethnicity. This explains why Hispanic students have the greatest number of total suspensions. They have the largest number of students enrolled. How did all of this happen? Beginning in the 2011-12 school year, district and site administrators attended meetings, were presented discipline data, and began discussions on how to reduce suspensions for all of our students. This is when our district philosophy began to shift away from the post-Columbine policies and procedures of zero tolerance. Over the course of the next 7 years, the introduction of ideas such as restorative practices, interventions, and alternatives to suspension, and also suspending students as a last resort became common practice. Conduct code revisions were made along the way, which reflected this new philosophy. These efforts have resulted in significant declines in suspensions of all students of all ethnicities. The next chart illustrates home suspension rates by ethnicity. To calculate suspension rates for a particular subgroup, you count how many students have been suspended one or more times for every 100 students enrolled in that subgroup. For example, if 1,000 students are enrolled at a school and 100 students were suspended one or more times, you would have a 10% suspension rate. This report illustrates that although all ethnicities have shown great improvement, there is still more work to be done. The ethnicities that have seen the largest decrease in suspension rates are Hispanic and 2 or more races. The ethnicity that has experienced the smallest decrease is African American. As you can see, there still exists a suspension rate gap with regard to African American students compared to all other ethnicities. This chart shows the suspension rates by ethnicity for the first semester of the current school year versus the first semester of last year. Although African American suspension rates have slightly declined compared to last year, there is still a suspension rate gap between African American students and all other ethnicities. This tells us that there is still more work to be done. This next chart shows expulsions by ethnicity. Prior to the 2010-11 school year, Modesto City Schools averaged between 200 to 300 expulsions per year. Over the past 8 years, there has been a significant drop in the total number of expulsions for all ethnicities. Hispanics have experienced the largest decrease in overall expulsions, dropping from 149 expulsions in 2010-11 to 4 expulsions in 2017-18. The next chart shows the number of incidents leading to either a home suspension or placement in-school suspension room or an intervention center. As part of the district philosophy moving towards intervention, supports for students and non-punitive responses to student discipline, intervention centers replaced in-school suspension rooms during the 2013-2014 school year. If you look at the top orange line on the chart, this represents incidents where students received an in-school suspension. The orange line then changes into a broken line. The broken line represents the change to intervention centers. This was a huge shift in the thinking and belief system of Modesto City Schools. Under the in-school suspension model, students were warehoused and supervised by an in-school suspension monitor. Attempts were made to provide students with homework. Students were considered suspended. The only difference was instead of sending them home, they served their suspension in an in-school suspension room. In contrast, intervention centers are not considered a suspension, are non-punitive, and students do not receive any additional consequences. Students do not lose eligibility for clubs, athletics, or any extracurricular activities. Intervention centers are staffed with a full-time teacher, a counselor, and an intervention center monitor. Students have full access to classroom work and full access to counseling services as needed. The broken line at the bottom of the chart represents incidents where students received a home suspension. As stated earlier, there has been a significant decline in overall home suspensions. There has been a misperception by some regarding the use of intervention centers. It has been the belief that Modesto City Schools created intervention centers in order to hide or cover up home suspensions. The belief by some is that the only reason the number of home suspensions has dropped so much is that students are increasingly being placed in intervention centers instead of being home suspended. The reality is that fewer students are currently placed in intervention centers than were previously placed in in-school suspension rooms. And you can see that if you follow the top line. It starts out in orange and it breaks. The number drops significantly over the past 8 years, kids. If you look at the chart, it's obvious the number of students who are either home suspended or placed in intervention centers both have continued to drop simultaneously. For example, you will see that in 2010-11, there were 4,669 incidents leading to a student being placed in in-school suspension. In 2017-18, there were only 1,651 incidents leading to a student being placed in an intervention center. During the same time, incidents of home suspension have dropped from 3,467 to 1,373. The belief by some that Modesto City Schools is hiding students in the intervention centers and has not really reduced home suspensions is false. Okay. What are some of the interventions and alternatives to suspensions that are currently offered to our students? Well, I just mentioned intervention centers. We have intervention centers, positive behavior intervention support teams at each site. Those are the teams that study the discipline at the school. They look for trends. They try to see where problem areas are. They come up with a school-wide rules for students to follow and possibly create lessons that can be taught school-wide. Restorative practices training is now provided at 26 sites. Without getting into detail, each of these has been presented at various board meetings. They would each be their own presentation, so I'm not really going to dig too deep, but that's where you'd have a restorative circle and you take kids, instead of suspending them, maybe you get them talking to each other. You correct a wrong by trying to make it right. Also, we have mental health and social emotional support offered at all sites. We now have Center for Human Services counselors at every single school in our district. And we also have mental health clinicians at many of our schools for kids who need more serious counseling. If we can't provide the services, we refer them to outside agencies to help with the counseling. Other interventions, alternatives, program Success Through Accountability for Youth. It's a 3-evening class. Parents attend along with students. They could attend these classes in lieu of a suspension. We have alcohol or drug counseling to reduce suspensions offered at not all of our high schools, but most of it, where they attend a counseling program. They reduce suspension for under the influence or, in possession of drugs, illicit contraband. We have classroom management training for teachers to help, because that's a big part of all this work, having teachers better skilled to work with kids who are at risk and keep them in class. Database monitoring of student discipline. And we've always really monitored our student discipline. We're going to a new system where we monitor it every 20 days. So we have you'll see the attendance one coming up in a minute, similar to that, but it's available to site administrators, district administrators, and we're really looking at it, comparing last year to this year. Every 20 days, we're looking at it. And we have one behavioral code, I believe one, Mr. Herbst, at the K-6 level. Possible discussions about expanding, but it's being discussed. Okay. Moving on to attendance. Modesto City Schools has always believed that excellent attendance helps to lead to student success. Research has shown that for students to learn, they need to be in school. Although Modesto City Schools has always believed in the importance of good student attendance, we are currently increasing the emphasis and focus in this area. And as I just recently stated, we're currently working on the development of a monitoring tool that will be used to track student attendance every 20 days at all of our sites. And that's a tool, it's up on the PowerPoint. It's not in the other one. Each 20 days will be compared to last year, and we're looking for growth and improvement. So if you look at the chart, you'll see columns going up and down. It says academic month 1. That's actually the first 20 days. So it comes out to be about a month. If you look at green, that means there was growth compared to those 20 days last year. So as you look through this chart, you'll notice there are a couple columns where it's almost all red. I want to remind everyone we had some pretty bad fires where we had huge losses of attendance. So attendance went down in almost every single school. I believe our attendance accounting is working with the state, and they may be modifying those numbers. If you look at the final month, you can see a lot of green. So you can see the emphasis is hopefully it's starting to pay off. Okay, so how do we support families in getting their students to school? Here's some of the supports. At the school level, many schools offer school incentives. Some examples are classes are recognized in morning announcements, weekly recognition, they have class-by-class competitions, monthly and trimester recognition, pizza rewards, monthly perfect attendance gift certificates. Some schools have coupons and Roadhouse, Subway, In-N-Out, end-of-year awards, and also most improved, because we're also looking for kids who show improvement. We also have SARB Awards Night. Some of you have attended that, where at the end of the year, kids who've been through the SARB process actually get awards. Some other things we do is, wait, did I miss something there? Okay. I was on school incentive, sorry about that. Got carried away. Parent communication. Anytime a kid's absent, parents receive an auto dial and they start getting phone calls if we're not in touch with the parents saying what's happening. There are a lot of home visits being conducted, and especially the attendance liaisons. They're going out to thousands of homes and numerous times. And I think I presented this one time earlier. Our attendance liaisons, they're trained to go out and act in the role almost like a social worker. When they go out to a home, it's not to hassle the family and go, why isn't your kid here? It's kind of saying, how can we help you? What do you need? Kid doesn't have a jacket, they can tell them where they can get jackets. They need glasses, they can refer them to where they can get free glasses. They can help with Medi-Cal. So they're almost like social workers. We also mail attendance letters. So parents, sometimes a kid misses a lot of days of school. It builds up. They don't realize it. They get letters at 3, 10, 15 days of total absences. They also get the unexcused letters going out. We have Saturday school, which we're currently expanding. And a lot of kids who have absences, they come on Saturday, they make up an absence. And I think what could happen as we expand this, kids who go on a Saturday during the week, they're feeling like, oh, I don't feel like going to school. Well, the mom's going to go, well, I'm going to have you go Saturday. Maybe, a little psychological thing there. We have school attendance review team meetings. That's at the site. That's the administrator, attendance liaison, the attendance clerk. Then school attendance review board, that's held here at district office. We bring in outside agencies, counseling services, social agencies are involved. Once again, even at that level, you're saying, how can we help you get your kid to school? That's kind of the theme of all of our messages. There are some people who just don't cooperate, and it's not fair to the kids, so we actually take people to court also. Although we've made good progress in the area of suspensions and expulsions in attendance, there's still more work to be done. What are our next steps? Well, you're going to hear a report when I'm done, and we're working with Dr. Akanafwa. and he's going to help us work with some of the things we need to improve on. We're going to provide targeted professional development to all classified and certificated staff. And that focus we're talking about is suspensions, working with kids. I can't tell you what that professional development is tonight because it's being worked on within groups right now. We're going to closely monitor suspension, expulsion, and attendance data, and I showed you the new charts we're going to be using. I forgot to mention we're creating a data dashboard within the district to where that can be real time. You could look up each day where people are with attendance and suspensions and all that. I think that'll be ready by the end of the year, I believe. Probably kicking it off next year. Depends on how fast they can keep working. We're pushing those programmers, we're pushing them hard. Also expand and continue with current efforts to increase attendance and reduce suspensions and expulsions. Okay, with that, are there any questions?
Thank you, sir. Trustee Brown is all ready to go here.
So the chart on page 4, Mr.
Okay,
Miller,
so
appreciate
I'll go
this.
backwards.
My microphone working? Okay.
Is it one of the charts?
Yes, the first one on page 4, where it shows the in-school suspensions converting to the intervention center placements. Then there's the second line. I'm curious, what is the criteria that would determine whether a home suspension still is issued as opposed to placement in the intervention center?
Well, I think a lot of the intervention center are your classroom referrals. Kids interrupting class, he won't stop, just keeps doing it. Teacher can't teach. A lot of those go into the intervention center. There's a spectrum here, so there's always going to be one side of it to the extreme, and sometimes things fall in the middle. So that's an example of what would be a typical intervention center placement. Some of your smaller things. If it's violence, someone beats up a kid, punching him, that's probably a 3-day home suspension. So it would depend on the offense, the type of offense. We have some offenses, if you look through our conduct code, usually like fighting, drugs, possession of a weapon, sexual harassment, bullying. If it's not the first offense, bullying, but if it just keeps going, that could lead to it could start out with intervention center. Kid keeps doing it, could end up a home suspension if they're not changing. So that's kind of the spectrum. Does that answer your question?
It does, but I'm curious. The home suspension isn't focused on changing behaviors like we can at the intervention center. So how can we help to improve a student's behavior by sending them home? It's almost a reward at sometimes.
Well, we still do home suspensions if we think it's a safety issue. If it's violence, weapons, drugs, those kind of things. That's kind of where we're at right now. If we were to send them to the intervention center every time there's a fight, then you're putting 2 kids in the intervention center for fighting. How long would you have them in the intervention center? Like a 3-day or 1 day? Or, that's just part of what most schools, that's what we do. We're trying to keep the schools safe. So right now where we're at is there are certain things where we still home suspend because we believe it keeps the schools safe. You could always look at anything and say, well, how does it help that kid? I guarantee a kid who's getting home suspensions, when you pull up their record, most of the time, they've been in the intervention center multiple times. So they've been in there multiple times, unless they go out and attack someone. Then you have a victim. Victim's being attacked, bullied by a certain kid. That family starts saying, hey, nothing happens. You guys don't do anything. We hear that all the time. Trustee Brown, that the parents of the victims feel like we're not tough enough. So we're always trying to strike that balance. Yeah, we want to help that kid. And if a kid is getting in a lot of trouble and he is getting in fights, we try to get them into counseling. Parents have to sign the agreement. So we don't just throw them out and that's the end. But That's why we still use home suspensions.
Yeah, trust
for those type of offenses.
You bring up a great point. I think Mr. Miller hit the nail on the head. There is still a slew, and even though we do use home suspension as a method of last resort, there is still interventions that we can provide when and if that kid gets back, and those interventions are provided. I think Ed made a mention of referral to counseling. We have anger replacement training at some of our sites, just in terms of people that exhibit physical aggression to other kids. So there are things that we can do on the flip side after the home suspension to try to curb the behavior from happening again. Because I agree with you. In home suspension in and of itself is a way of correcting behavior, not a strong research base that it does it. I believe I'm going to get Trustee Lopez in here pretty quickly. Wanted to ask a follow-up, I believe, here.
Yeah, well, Mark actually responded to that. I was going to ask what was done after the home suspension, what kind of services were offered to the student, and you mentioned counseling and other things, and I agree with Chad about, if we're just suspending, there's no restorative progress, right? So that's why I wanted to ask what was the follow up with a student once he comes back into school, so that we don't miss an opportunity for growth.
Trustee Irvin.
Yes, Ed, I just wanted to ask about on page 5, the attendance data by site. I know you said that some of the attendance was due to the fires and things like that, and I think that was like academic month 4. But what about sites like Mark Twain, Roosevelt, where it's pretty bit been red the whole period of time? Have you been able to pinpoint why that is happening, or are there any trends that been reflective of those sites based on the red?
I can't say that any trends have been identified. I mean, the schools are on top of it, and their directors go out, and one thing, if you look at these long-term trends on attendance is a little different than suspensions. I think you saw suspensions started here and they go down. Attendance, we've always pushed attendance, so it's been like around 95% attendance rate since I've been in the district. And so you have dips where it goes down, up, down, up, down, up. Like 1 year, your attendance might be negative for the whole year by like 0.5 percentage point, and the next year you go up. And everyone's going, look at us, it went up. So I think we're kind of at this point where we're kind of going like this. But I think, Dr. Noguchi has stated at some recent meetings, we're going to make a big push on attendance for all the schools and really dig in deeper and try to push this up to, higher percentages. But so, no, I don't have any specifics tonight on why is Roosevelt. Yeah, they are all red. Yeah, when you look at it. I guess if I had like a 3-year trend, I'd like to see if they had pushed up and now it's like an off year. I don't know. Could be that, or it could be there's a problem. Yeah.
Trustee West.
I'm going to flip back to page 4 to
Okay.
tag along with what Trustee Brown was talking about. And I can see that the numbers have gone down drastically for consequences for behavior.
Okay.
But I'm curious to know, do we have any research on the effectiveness of the intervention centers? Because just because the numbers went down doesn't mean the behavior has improved. Do we have any numbers to show that behavior is actually improved, or are we just doing different things and documenting it differently?
Like just intervention center behavior, or are you talking like home suspensions are down because we're documenting it differently, you mean, or?
I just wonder about the effectiveness of the intervention centers. Are students, is the behavior actually improving? Do we have data showing that if a student is referred once, that they're not referred again?
I know there's going to be a presentation either at the next board meeting. I'm not trying to kick the can down, or we might have Bragado come. Bragado is oversees the intervention center. They're collecting all kinds of data. We're collecting data right now. Why are kids sent there? Who's sending them? How often is that kid? We're tracking, is this kid a repeat offender? What's happening with this kid? And then within the intervention center, they have a whole different set of data tracking. I was trying to follow it all, and I go, forget it. I'm not in charge of it anymore. So But they're tracking what happens inside the intervention center.
Like superintendent to jump in here right quick. I think she's got a point here.
So at the next board meeting, we have a presentation on intervention centers and the data collected, and we'll answer some of the questions that you have. So let's wait. Let's just kind of put the pin in this one because there is some answers, but we're 3 weeks early.
I just want to make sure we're not just sticking a Band-Aid on it and we're not really improving the problems that we're seeing.
Yeah, that'll be a whole presentation. You guys can go in depth.
That brings us back to me now. One, I want to thank everybody for the presentation. I haven't asked for it formally, but I've been asking for something behind the scenes like this for a couple of years. And I think to Trustee Brown's point, I think if I was looking to change this, I think one of the things that would be interesting to highlight, because I think 2 board meetings back, I had all the data I had pulled from CalPADS going back to the same years. And Dr. Konofua had pointed out when he presented at Downey, I think if we were able to see the reduction in defiance and see how that levels out, because you can see the categories, and it can be a bit much for a board meeting. I don't disagree, because you can overwhelm the community at times, but you can break all these things out by category, and I think that will be helpful to be able to see that drop off and show that we're not suspending students for defiance like we used to, and that's a marked improvement. You don't see it at all at the elementaries. It's very, very, very limited at the high schools, but I would agree, and I did not stop Principal Nipper from leaving, although I wanted to, because I was curious about your question as well, is that do we get any feedback from parents in the sense that they feel like the intervention centers are helping? Because that would be an interesting data point. Because they do more than just suspensions. And I guess that's what I would be after, because I know my daughter uses the intervention center at Enoch's when she's having a hard day. And it's good for that, but that's not what we're talking about tonight. I think it would be interesting to get feedback from parents who have their students and children that have spent time in the intervention centers. Do they feel like there's an improvement? Because if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think at the presentation, Mr. Godot, make sure you prepare that, get some feedback. But they're going to do a full-blown, I don't want to steal his, show.
Correct. I'm just thinking, because I think it's one of the things I think is really positive is that we do see the reports we're getting now are much more complete. And I think we see a lot of data in them, which allows us to ask for sort of that next level material. I think part of what you were talking about with the attendance data is interesting, because we've talked about suspension data for 2 or 3 years. And I think that I've questioned Mr. Herbst many times when we talked about this subject about how we've put in the leverage learning and the PBIS and the restorative justice, and we didn't do it rapidly. It's been done over 5 or 6 years. It's been incrementally placed in, and you sort of put in that structure that allows us to sort of modify where we need to be. And I've asked in the past, where are we drilling down to that site level, where we've got the institutional stuff at the district level, but now those site leaders, those principals, and those teachers are now customizing for those students, and we're at that level, correct? And sort of drilling down.
Luckily, hold on. Luckily, we're going to be doing a presentation on that very, very item, as well as the intervention centers beginning next board meeting. But
who says we're not listened to?
Yeah, I would tell you, just to answer real briefly, yeah, I'm pleased with where we're at. There's still work to be done, but it is a cultural, when you talk about PBIS and RP, you're talking cultural shifts. That isn't just we inserted a program. That's a different way of looking at how you interact with kids.
And I think that's why I always ask that question, because it's one of the first things you taught me after I was elected was that, it is, and you brought the gentleman from UOP, I believe, who had talked about how this is it takes time, and it's a cultural shift, and now we're sort of 4, 5, 6 years in, and so, yes, I am fishing for that next level. And then I appreciate you adding the attendance data, because that's new. We haven't seen that before. And I think that just goes to show how we've sort of put that one pole in place, and we've worked on for many, many years, the suspension and the expulsions and all those records. And now that next piece is that attendance data and putting the data together, which I think is probably why you don't see the trend lines, as we haven't been following like this before. And then bringing on the data dashboard you're talking about, which will add some context, I believe. And so I have many more questions for later, because I think that's the quality of the report, and I think it was well done. I appreciate the effort. I had one change I'll ask for the next time we do it, and Other than that, I'm going to go back to Trustee West, and then we'll go out to the audience, unless Meredith has questions.
I'm just going to tag on to what you had mentioned about wanting feedback from parents about how they feel about the effectiveness. And when we get that report eventually, I'd like to hear feedback from teachers as well to see if they feel that it's being effective and maybe there could be some improvements. I'd like to have feedback from the teachers as well. Thank you.
All right, I see no more lights. Comments from the public? Questions from the public? Seeing none, back to the board for comments. I see Trustee Newman in line first.
I just really appreciate our staff's effort with regard to the lowering these numbers and addressing this huge concern. The chart speaks for itself, and the numbers speak volumes of the effort that's been made, the Herculean effort, and I appreciate it. And as we venture down this road, I appreciate the fact that you started your report with where there's a balancing that we do, with trying to make sure that our schools are safe, and so I just want to add that at the end of the day, my ultimate responsibility as a board member is to make sure our schools are safe. I mean, that's it. That's the top priority I have sitting here. Not to make, foolish fiscal decisions, but schools need to be safe. And so if that means that number, I can't get this down to zero, then I can't get that down to zero, because our students need to be safe. So if their students are dangerous, if the students, we should help them before they become a danger. Hopefully we can, and hopefully we can intervene with the counseling we provided. Through the LCAP, we've provided so many mental health efforts for our students that are available to them that have never been available before. I hope we can do that. But at the end of the day, when you need to make the call that we need to suspend this student or we need to expel this student, it's because it's not safe for them to be there anymore. And that's our responsibility. Is safety is the bottom line where it all stops for us. We have to make sure it's safe. And so that's it. As much as I like to see these numbers go down, the overriding concern for me is that when my kids go to school, and when and I'll call my kids the 30,000 kids that go to our schools, and when they go to school, they need to be safe.
I would concur as a parent. And I think that's also why I sort of asked in the last question if you add in that other piece that shows that we're not suspending for defiance, and you add that little bar chart in there that shows that when we really are suspending, it's a pretty heavy lift. And I think that the other interesting comment I've heard from students, and the first time it happened was really stunning. And I think I was with Trustee Vice President Marks. We were doing an equity subcommittee, and we were interviewing students, and this was a couple years ago. And we were asking the students about what they felt, and they were much harder than I would have ever been. And I see it with my own students, is that, interestingly enough, they will tell you, if you get them off the side more often than not, why aren't you doing more to get rid of so-and-so or idea? And I don't know if it's the perspective of being a teenager, but I would agree with the safety thing, and it's a very interesting take if you listen to the teenagers talk to you about whether or not something should be done or not, and I don't think we can always do that, but I agree, school safety is first. And it's an interesting take when you listen to the teenagers, because they have a very different perspective than we do as adults at times, and it's worth listening to. And it's certainly reassuring at times that we aren't going too far, because more often than not, they're saying, why haven't you gone farther? And with that outstanding report, thank you. And
President
I will turn it over to Superintendent.
Just one comment. I'd like to take a moment and say thank you to Mr. Miller, who this is his last board presentation, and he's been with us for many, many, many years, and we don't have him on the docket between now and June. So I want to thank you for your thorough reports, your great presentations, and all the work that you've done thus far. You're not leaving us yet, but I just know you don't have another board presentation, so thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Second that motion. Okay. I believe we go on to, I might want to call this part 2 of a similar topic, item B6. Report from Dr. Okanafua on Mindset Science Solutions on project status. Welcome, sir.
We are happy tonight to have the opportunity for Dr. Quantifa to present this evening. This opportunity came about as a result of the compromise and a release agreement agreed upon May of 2018. Together, both parties interviewed Dr. Quantifa and agreed to Dr. Quantifa being the lead expert to evaluate, analyze, and make recommendations for the district's discipline policy and intervention plan. In the policy, it recommends that he present to the board once every school year. Tonight, Dr. Quantifa will present the progress to date, next steps, and answer any questions you might have. Please welcome Dr. Quantifa.
Good evening. Since this is my first time before you today, just brief introduction. I received my bachelor's in psychology. Bachelor's from Northwestern University in studying psychology and economics, and then earned my master's and PhD from Stanford University, specialization in psychology, and am now a professor at the University of California, Berkeley, but working with the district at present at the capacity of the founder of Mindset Science Solutions. That's a science-based organization geared towards finding scalable solutions, specifically to inequities that we see in society today. Put frankly, that means analyzing and looking into mechanisms that might be in play in relationships that can break down, and then finding scalable solutions to healing those relationships. And so going to briefly just touch on what we have done so far, what we're doing right now, and what we will be doing over the course of the next year, and then hopefully be able to answer as many questions as you all have for me tonight. And so, yeah, what we've done so far is, or I should also say I will be meeting with, or I'll say that later. So we started this collaboration in around April of last year, 2018. By May, was able to have some meetings with the district leadership, but also with the teachers union here, who were very helpful and were able to put me in touch with hundreds of teachers in the school district. Was able to conduct about 6 focus groups at the teachers union's offices. Thank you to them. And those focus groups were well attended. We didn't intend to have that many meetings, but we wanted to have it open to as many teachers that would like to have participated as possible. Many did want to participate, and so we held those. Each focus group consisted of anywhere between 4 and 8 teachers. And these were teachers who were coming to voluntarily participate in these focus groups, and to do so during their free time. This was, I believe we started the focus groups at 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening. A number of the focus groups ran over time. All of this is a sign that teachers really wanted to voice their perspectives and what they were seeing and experiencing in the school district over the course of sometimes several years. For the sake of their confidentiality, as well as it being this preliminary and the collaboration or analysis, won't touch on the details of what was disclosed in those focus groups. Thereafter, also conducted for more of a quantitative approach, surveys with over 100 teachers in the school district who also volunteered to just answer some survey items, and was able to combine both the taking those focus group conversations, they were recorded, transcribing them, and analyzing them, combined with analyzing the data from those survey assessments to create specific research-based strategies that may be applicable in this particular context, and that is the basis of the modules that would be rolled out during this academic school year, which is what we then did with the help of leadership here, the district of Modesto. We were able to schedule and run that module with teachers, all K through 12 teachers. Well, not all K through 12 teachers participated, but we were able to run it for them. And also students in grades 4 through 12. And so this approach will both allow us to see room for psychological mechanisms to be shifted in this particular context at the teacher level as well as at the student level. It will also allow us to take a very deep dive into what mindsets or psychological processes are at play in the teacher-student relationships, as well as other relationships and experiences in schools across the district. And so we worked with all of the middle and high schools in the district, and we worked with a select number of the elementary schools in the district. We will be sharing more information about that particular selection process in coming time. Just to be clear, I am no way trying to be misleading or anything of that nature. It's for the integrity of the research process that I'm not naming it certain things at this time, but they will be disclosed to everyone involved. And so that we were able to do that in the fall of 2018. And since then, we are doing preliminary analyses of what those responses were from both teachers and students. We have been able to file through the many responses from teachers at all of the grade levels. And next we will be diving into all of the student responses, which, as you can imagine, is a much larger number and a much larger data set to dig into. We also, I'm sorry, there's slides with all this that hopefully y'all have in front of you. Oh, I do. Got it. Thank you. No worries. Yeah, I'm just saying what's on there anyway. And so at present, well, I guess I should also add that's not up there, is that as many of you were there to witness, gave a presentation to just community members in a town hall type of setting that was very well attended, and there were a lot of questions that were asked, a lot of conversations that were started. A number of people have followed up with me, and I will be indeed talking with them. I imagine that they have already voiced their concerns with people that I will be meeting with this Thursday. This Thursday, I'll be meeting with all legal counsel for all parties involved in the matters at hand to update them on what's happening. But then back to the current steps, we will be launching a second session or a second module with the K through 12 teachers, as well as 4th through 12th grade students. And that will allow us to both look more at the shift in potential mindsets, as well as more data to take that deeper dive as what's happening on a psychological level beyond what are just the outcome data or outcome measures, which we will also be looking into, which leads into what else we'll be working on. And so in spring 2019, we'll finalize collecting and organizing the archival data for all of the actual school outcomes in this district for the past 3 years. And we'll do it in a very strategic way that will allow us to have an even more powerful analysis for the data we'll receive for next year. And that takes us into this final slide, such that the summer following this academic year, we will then collect the data collected for this academic year. That will allow us to see what changes were able to be made. And because the process or project is set up in this very strategic way, we will be able to pinpoint exactly what things have improved versus not and why. And then in the fall, we will then merge the data we have at the survey level with the outcome data, which will be a very intense process and the most time-consuming part of this process. But we already have plans to get that done. That will then allow us to match what it is that was done, what is happening on the psychological level, the shift on the psychological level, and that exactly how it pertains to actual outcomes from this school year. And that will be the grand analyses that will allow us to, in the winter of 2020, supply those reports to all parties involved, and then in the spring of 2020 to have recommendations based directly on those results, such that ultimately the recommendations will be based in evidence or scientific evidence. And so I will stop there and open it up to any questions that anyone may have. And I think, do I turn around? If
you're up here with us, I think, for the moment. Thank you for driving. Thank you for coming down. I think it was not just well attended at Downey. I'm pretty sure that all 7 of us were there. We were scattered in different parts of the auditorium, but every board member was there. I learned quite a bit listening to you, and I'm going to turn this over. I got all lights going now. I know Cindy. I know Cindy was first. So Trustee Marks. We'll come back to Trustee Lopez second, and I'll start working my way through lights here.
Okay.
Hi, welcome. Thank you again for coming back to Modesto. I had a question about, I know we're focusing on teachers and students, and that's how your report is going to be calibrated, I believe. But I'm wondering about administrators, other staff at the school, school board members. Is there, and I know that probably wasn't in the agreement, but maybe it just focused on teachers and students. So I didn't know if you also do that, and what kind of information can we as board members or as other staff members have available to us to be able to maybe participate in the modules, or and to help us understand where we might need some growth in our thinking as well.
So a few responses. I'll start with the.
Okay.
Yeah. I do have work on programs geared directly towards administration, and in working with a very large school district in a southern state of the United States, we rolled out tests with administrators and found that very similar processes happen at the administrative level that happen with teachers at the teacher level, that attest to that it's a psychological process as opposed to an indictment of there being something wrong with a particular person. There's something that comes with the context. The efficacy of the actual programs that we can gear towards a shift at that level have not been as well researched as our other programs, and so that's something that we would like to be cautious with. And my team has also designed, or I have also designed, materials for district leaders, and if that seems like something that may be of value, that is something that can be shared at the recommendation level. I mean, when we get to that point. And the current plan, there isn't a plan to look into the mindsets of people at the district level. That has not been asked of me, so that's just not in the plans to date. What may be happening at the administration level is something that will likely be discussed in the meeting on Thursday, and what is expected from the different parties. But then for parents, that is something that has come up a number of times from the beginning of the conversation that I've had with the various parties. It's something that definitely came up in the town hall meeting. It is something that seems like it will continue to come up. That is something I imagine we definitely will discuss on Thursday. At present, we don't have a element of the work I'm doing that pertains to parents.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Indeed.
Trustee Lopez.
First off, I want to thank you for your presentation tonight and back at Downey. Everyone's beating me to the questioner, but you, I don't know if she asked it, but you definitely answered about the parent, because I know it was something that a lot of people were bringing up. And I just wanted to ask if there was, if you had thought about it a little bit more, and how would you see implementing some of that research. I know most of it's probably going to be qualitative from parent input into the baseline of your work.
So, as a scientist, I try to be very careful to stick with what I specialize in, and I specialize in what happens in the school context. When we start thinking about the parenting component, that opens up a lot of fields that I've been trained in my graduate studies, but in my own publications that I've created from new research, it has not pertained to that particular population. I can say that there are a number of additional factors that need to be considered when considering that perspective. For example, what might be productive or unproductive discipline from that perspective may be very different than that of a teacher or an administrator, and that would need to be considered. But what I can say is, from a scientific standpoint, more data is always better. There will be difficulty, at least in what I understand so far, in how that step can happen in a strategic manner, such that all parents' voices can be heard and that all of them contribute to something going forward. Because I imagine parents outnumber every other population in this equation. And so that will take some serious consideration, I imagine. Yeah. we are definitely going to be talking more about. Mm-hmm.
Trustee West.
Mine's just a simple one. I just want to clarify the online modules. At first, I assumed they were training modules, but now it appears as if there's more surveys to collect information. Is that correct?
They're both.
Can you give us any, without giving away any confidential information, can you give us any ideas of what were in those modules, some types of questions that were asked or information that was given?
No. They were asked about their experiences, both teachers and students, their experiences in school, their experiences with each other. Mm-hmm.
Trustee Irvin.
You got a high security clearance, huh?
Yes.
Thank you for coming again, and also thank you for your time at Downey. Most of my few of the questions I have are actually from folks in the community who attended in Downey and couldn't be here tonight, and had asked me if I would ask the questions on their behalf. But my question is, when you do your student module, will you include students who are in alternative education, some of the G30? G33?
230.
Oh, G230. And some of our other type of programs who may not be in the traditional settings, alternative school, Elliott, and things like that.
That's a great question. At present, no. They have not been included.
Okay. And then a question from the community. Question from the community was one. What are the plans to achieve the outcomes or the action steps? And I guess this is here, and I will make sure they get a copy of this as well. Then another question was, can you provide more details about the types of scientific instruments you are using to gather information from teachers?
I can't, but I will.
Okay.
Better response.
Right.
To say something right now about that specifically would harm the integrity of the entire process, such that by me saying right now, don't think of a white polar bear, everyone likely just thought of a white polar bear, and that now that that's happened, people are assuming that I'm going to be brainwashing them in some way. That's a very high-level example of just why I will disclose that information, definitely, and I'm legally bound to, but not yet.
And what research or assessment tools will you use to measure student conduct? Will you be recommending evidence-based solutions to help teachers with cultural competency and multiple perspective learning styles?
I do not yet know what recommendations will be deemed the most necessary. Those are some options.
And another question was, the perception was you're so against implicit bias. Why are you so against implicit bias? And do you feel your research trumps implicit bias?
Yeah.
Implicit bias training. I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah. I'm like, don't we all dislike? I don't dislike implicit bias training. My advisors are the leading experts at implicit bias training, and they primarily do it with police departments as well as tech companies. I am charged with the task of indeed designing some of those programs and regularly give feedback to those programs. any reservation that I have is purely scientific, and I was really hoping to put that forward in the presentation in the town hall, that it's just a fact that from a scientific standpoint, we have yet to pinpoint exactly how to be particularly effective at getting rid of people's implicit bias. And that there's a number of ways that that makes more sense, but one of them is that not all implicit bias is stereotyping per se. There's implicit bias that we do normally that we would just consider cognitive functioning, that is actually the same thing. It's happening beyond our awareness, and it's happening beyond our control, and yet it is still affecting our decision making and our attention. To give an example that can be passed along is the cocktail effect, such that we can be in a very crowded room at a cocktail party, and if someone many paces away as much as says our name, all of a sudden, without any control from us, we are honing in exactly to what they're saying and somehow canceled out what everyone else was saying. That would be a similar process. And so it's just, I don't hate implicit bias training. I would very much like to contribute and see it become more effective.
And then, what are the risks and challenges in the work that you're doing?
I can't speak to the challenges yet because that's a part of what I'm here to do, is to discover what those are. The risks, it's hard to say. In a lot of, well, in psychology in general, the risks can be high. And so, yeah, all I can say is that it's hard to say. I can also say that no program that I've conducted has backfired.
Okay. Then last question. Who are the stakeholders and who are the collaborative partners you'll be engaging, like community, other groups, outside groups, and things like that?
So far at the recommendation stage.
They didn't specify.
I think they're talking about the latter, and there's a long list of things to draw from. It's all going to depend on what the analyses show. Rest assured, yeah, I have access to I don't know how to put this. Any major one that they can probably imagine is something that is going to be considered. Yeah.
Thank you.
Was that a sufficient answer? I just,
without,
because there's a lot.
Specificity, like you said, what they're talking about in here or the latter, it just says, what groups or, stakeholders, communities, professionals does he plan to engage in this endeavor, basically?
Yeah, I can say more about that in the months to come. Yep.
Thank you.
Trustee Newman.
Thank you for coming tonight. I just had one question about something you said. I just wanted you to explain it in your own words. It struck me as needing more. I needed to understand it better. You said you're going to be collecting data in a strategic way to be more powerful. Can you just elaborate? What do you mean by strategic way?
Sure. For example, one thing, when I say power, that's pertaining to a power analysis. And that's basically saying that we have collected enough data to be able to sufficiently stand on the findings with a reasonable level of scientific certainty. And so, for example, in physics, well, in general, we have an idea that gravity is going to pull everything down to the Earth. However, what's much well known in the scientific community, that's a probability, and that there is a probability that if you drop something, it won't fall to the Earth. And that they have to establish enough data in order to be able to say that to a certain level of scientific certainty. That's what we call a probability level, or a p-value. And so one strategic thing is assuring that there is a large enough sample Another one is assuring that there's a large enough sample at a respective representation of the population, and so that we're drawing on teachers and students from as many schools as possible that can differ on the size of the student population that they have, the racial demographics of the school, the socioeconomic status of the neighborhood or the student population of the school. Any number of the things that we measure, we want to make sure that we call it stratified, that there's an equal opportunity for all of those things to be controlled for and accounted for in the outcome, in the analyses. And so that's what I meant by strategic.
Okay. I think that was it. Other than go Bears.
I got you. I know the story. Trustee Brown.
So, Dr. O, I'm going to ask you to give us a linguistics lesson, please. It seems like each one of us that tries to pronounce your name does it differently. I'd like to hear from you how we should pronounce your name.
Dr. O is what my students call it. Okanafwa.
Okanafwa. Okay. Thank you. So, looking at this whole project that we've enlisted you to perform for us, there are multiple perspectives and hoped outcomes based on the individual who's going to be evaluating the analysis. So many different players and so many different mindsets coming into this whole picture. How are we going to find unity in the end?
That will be an element of the recommendations I hope to make ultimately. That will be a very large part. That the framing of going forward will basically be pivotal. And I mean, to answer another part of that question, I personally, because I'm the person hearing all of these perspectives and mindsets, I personally will not be the person to do the analyses or put together the reports. Someone else who knows nothing about this district whatsoever will be in charge of doing that so that it's done in an objective way. And that is something that I plan to stand on when making the recommendations ultimately. But to answer your question, that's an excellent question. And I hope that's going to be a big part of the recommendations. As a scientist, I have to say when I don't know, and I don't know yet, we're going to try.
All right, we're down to me. I get a real kick. I like listening. I learn a lot listening to, and it's interesting because I don't know how many fucking you talk about the science piece. When I first started writing software over at Moffett Field, one of the hardest things I had to get used to learning was when I'd ask a question, I wouldn't get the answer I thought I was going to get. And you'd have to go off and sort of figure it out and work your way through it. It's an interesting bit. I love the statistics. I think I'm going to go try 2 because I figured this might be where we end up because you're going to pull this up to a high level. Ideally, we're looking for this relationship between the student and the teacher, correct?
Correct.
That's where we're looking to improve. And I've thought about this a lot, and my take has always been, and you can tell me right, wrong, and different, or I'm close. The biggest or most leading indicator there that we're getting that right is when we start seeing academic improvement start creeping up, and we start seeing students more engaged, and scores come up, and that sort of indicator, that leading edge that says, hey, we're moving this thing in the right direction. Does that pass that smell test?
Partially, yes.
I'm trying not to ask.
I'm not going to say more yet, but I can give you an example of how it could look different. For example, I just finished designing programs for Alameda County's juvenile justice system. And when looking at certain populations, academic performance is not really an indicator of better relationships. Showing up at school in the first place is a much more telling indicator, or asking them more of a qualitative question of how happy they feel on a given day or how tired do they feel on a given day can better predict long-term outcomes. But all that to say, grades is definitely one of them, and there's more.
I just get worried about the frustration level because I'm a parent also. And as a parent, I see this through two lenses. I've got one student who's a rock star. I got one who struggles. The one that's a rock star, it doesn't matter what happens in the day. She just kicks right on through. The one that struggles, it doesn't take as much to kick that day sideways. And then getting them back can be tougher. And so I get what you're saying, and I think that's sort of a more complicated question of what I was driving at, is that they're students, they're children, they're all different. And at the end of the day, our job is to educate. And I'm looking at that piece, and I think what I'm saying is sort of what your answer was, is that it's going to be a little bit different for each one.
That's correct. And yeah, we're going to try to account for that statistically to the extent that we can.
So if I can retire, I'll come sit in one of your classes because I think it would be interesting to listen. They're not going to let me do that for a while, but I really do. I've taken notes. I thought Downey presentation you did was great. I actually went home and did a bunch of work after that. I think we talked before that I was jamming and crunching numbers.
I saw that, yeah.
I've gone off and done a whole nother set just based on your presentation and that conversation going down a different road. So I am listening and learning, and I appreciate the time and effort.
You're welcome in any of my classes.
Like I said, day job's got to cut me loose, and I got to get my daughter through. With that, I don't see any more lights here. Are there any questions from the community that they'd like to address on this report? Seeing none, back to the board for comments. Seeing none. Thank you, sir, for the time and effort. I mentioned earlier that we got to this point in the meeting. I'd like to take a 15-minute break. Nothing else, come down and thank you personally, and then we'll come back here in 15.
Sorry about that. Oh, no worries. I didn't notice it sitting there. Thank you.
Thanks. Nice job.
I go back and watch it. Okay, perfect. I've actually go back and watch it. What really happened? You don't always see everything.
We can send you the presentation, but obviously you probably don't.
Yeah, both of them. Okay. It's mostly, yeah, just for me to better see it.
Thank you for coming out. Are you driving all the way back home tonight? Actually, there's no traffic right now, so it's okay.
Yeah, usually it's the night. Yeah. Hour and a half of coming here.
Yes. There's a reason I leave at 3 o'clock to get they leave work at 2. 15 years ago, it wasn't bad. Now, anything after 2:15, 2 hours doesn't happen. And I'm coming from Mafia.
It's also out here.
Well, and I told them,
don't expect to do it.
No, and you don't. It's never called 1,000 cars. Their parents they make such pictures so they get to go outside of the fences. Sometimes. I was going to say something.
Yes. Oh, right. Thank you. Indeed. Great question. That's going to be really important. Thank you for that. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, all the stuff. I will see you tomorrow. Okay. I'm just gonna. There's gonna be some potatoes. Hopefully.
I was done. I set it off and it just never.
question. It was on my mind tonight. This has to be a forward-looking process.
All of those things take place.
Let me go get on that. Good to see you.
Financially. Right? So yeah. I really don't
Did you get your answers? Did you get your answers? Now you gotta deliver.
I'll try to explain that to a point where scientific integrity.
That's right.
But on the other hand, it's going to be like that.
I get it.
Are going to complain. Well, now we can't even tell that he's going to keep this thing down. We're going to get sued. But I think that a lot of people and explain why we city training or something. No, I get it.
Surprising we didn't have a lot of.
No, like I said, I had 3 people. I thought so. Oh, yeah.
Ya me dijo que no le anden mandando messages. Que no vuelva a hablar con ella, nada. ¿Y sabes por qué pienso que se sienten muy huecos? Porque tienen pero se llama Glass Deutsch. I ran a back and down helping her son.
Some of them have to be your neighborhood. But it wasn't mine. You know,
Vamos hablando de expulsions, suspensions at the district level right now, and now it's happening to me. I said, this is now something's going on.
$100 and we had to do it. They couldn't put it in but it's like super global, so we can
What happens? Habits are hard to change.
well, I saw you down here, and I didn't know it was important, so that's why I wanted to
I wanted to hand him something. I did a bunch of work on this weekend. He's thinking about it. Because it combines his work and this guy's work, which is one of my favorite offers ever. Let's see what he comes up with.
Ready?
No, I want 10 minutes. I want a minute. I had to wait. And I wanted 5. We're moving quick.
So this right here. So this was the
write it down.
So what are we doing? Is it making a difference? How do we know? So all of that will be.
Oh, and I was told that you know what? Is there a teacher there or somebody to watch this kid? Thank you.
Yeah, I don't remember, but I know there was a payment so many days after it's not registered. Oh, did you?
Hi. I'm so tired. Are you?
Good seeing you. Drop right in it.
I know.
How exhausted.
Huh?
How exhausted.
Do this.
Did you know Amy left?
She left? All right, so, and I was looking for her, so I guess that's why I shouldn't have been waiting, because she's gone. All right. So we're going to bring this back into order, and then just in time, Amy Trustee Newman went home, not feeling well. We're going to bring back Student Trustee Benz's student report. So you're up.
Hi, everyone. So at the last meeting, we were just talking about getting the machine rolling for the Tournament of Talent, which is to take place on April 17th. That's the biggest priority of the Inter-High Council. Right now, the homecoming season has come to a close. Many of the high schools are working on musicals right now, or plays. I know there's Anne of Green Gables, Sound of Music, Cinderella, Mamma Mia at our local high schools, so I recommend go and support our talented students. I am working on I'm trying to get students to fill out the high school volunteer forms to participate in the MCS book club that we're working on creating with Mr. Hurst. So that's on its way. It'll probably start the beginning of March to the beginning of May and will take place on Fridays. Yeah, I just came back from mock trial, the award ceremony. Bayer High School will be going to state, and I believe that's on March 23rd. And mock trial is it's a wonderful program. You learn a lot about objections, and we have students working with local attorneys and judges, so it's an incredible experience, and I was lucky to participate in it. Yeah, so I don't know. It has been amazing just working through some of these programs that are offered in our district, in our county. It's incredible, and go to as many of those events as possible because these students are amazing. Thank you.
Questions from board members? None. Audience? Seeing none. Back to the board for comments. Thank you and welcome to the meeting, Ms. Benz. I was holding for you. All right, so that takes us to B7. So back into the weeds. Public hearing regarding the proposed facility financing contract for the financing of Phase 2 of the Energy Conservation Project with Johnson Controls, Inc. I believe this feels like Mr. Zierle's territory.
Yes, it is. Thank you, President Walker. This, though, is a public hearing, so...
Oh, I have to call it in order?
Yes, sir.
Public hearing called to order. It's late. I was up at 2:30 this morning.
Staff does not have a presentation unless there's a question from the public, but we do have presentation on the resolution or the next agenda item.
Okay, being this a hearing, any questions from board members? Seeing none. Questions from the public? Seeing none. Back to the board for comment. Seeing none. This closes the hearing, and then we reopen the board meeting. And I move to B8, right? Okay. B8. Take a deep breath here. Approval of Resolution 1819-22, authorizing the execution and delivery of documents relating to the execution and delivery of an equipment lease purchase agreement with respect to the acquisition, purchase, financing, and leasing of certain equipment for public benefit, authorizing the execution and delivery of other agreements and documents required, and authorizing the direct certain actions and connections therewith, will be referred to as Resolution 1819-22 forward. So, sir.
Thank you again, President Walker. I apologize for the length of the subject. Resolution 1819-22. Starting on page B8, though, I would like to direct the attention of the board to that page. And this goes back to November 17th, 2014 for those trustees that were on the board at that point in time. Staff asked and the board approved authorization to seek qualifications or proposals under Proposition 39 for energy consultant services. And then on February 10th, 2015, the board approved to award the RFQ to Johnson Controls, which started what we call phase 1 of energy or LED lighting retrofits under the Energy Conservation Program funded by Proposition 39. It's been a benefit to us as far as inside for classroom lighting improvements and also outside lighting improvements. But Proposition 39 only covered approximately half of our fluorescent fixtures. And so we've been wanting to finish that throughout the district. And so we asked the board on December 10th, 2018 to approve phase 2 of this contract with JCI to finish it, to complete the rest of the lighting retrofits throughout the district, but also we have added stadium lighting retrofits to this as well. If you recall from December, the 3 stadiums that we have would be retrofitted to energy efficient LED lighting fixtures as well. So now the board approved that change order pending financing. And so staff has been working for the last 2 months to secure financing. We went out and got 14 financial institutions to respond to our bid package. We're very pleased with that. It was a very competitive process. And tonight we're proposing to award the financing to Bank of America Public Capital Corp. With that, I would like to introduce our district's financial advisor, Jeff Small, who has some brief comments on the financing of this in regards to and relation to Government Code 4217.13. It's a requirement to show certain things that basically the project can pay for itself with energy savings. And so Jeff's here to talk about the financing proposal that we have before you.
Yeah, thank you very much, board members. Jeff Small, Capital Public Finance Group, registered with the SEC as a municipal advisor, which means my duty is a duty of loyalty and a fiduciary duty to the district. I'm here with Sean Mick from Dennis, Wilver, and Kelly. He's the legal counsel. I think Mr. Zierle gave a very good and thorough explanation. I won't recap what he said, but I do want to pick up on the last thing he said, which was there is a finding in the resolution that says that essentially that the project will pay for itself savings. So what you'll see in there is a financing. It's $8.5 million for the project fund. There's cost of issuance of $105,000, which is about $95,000 less than what we thought it would be. So, we're happy to see that the district saved some money there. You'll also see that there's about $35,000 a year on average in revenues that exceed the actual cost of the debt service, which is good. And what that means is that currently you're paying your utility bills from your general fund. We're estimating that based on the phase 1 and phase 2 lighting project, that your utility bills will actually decline by about $35,000 based on the projected benefit that we're getting from Johnson Controls the first year of operation. And I think it's important to note that Johnson Controls, under their performance guarantee, came up with that first year of savings. And, we're very conservative people. If I were a salesman, I'd probably do a pretty lousy job, because one of the things that we did not do is we did not incorporate future increases in utility rates. And the reason why we did that is because if utility rates were to escalate over time, this project would be more valuable to the district. So we're just looking at, what is this baseline number? If it's $813,000 a year and you're saving approximately $35,000 a year for the 15 years of the loan, you're going to come out with, presumably at least $500,000 in savings. The other thing that we didn't incorporate is, what happens after year 15? After the loan is paid off, you have lighting that has a useful life of approximately 20 years. So there's an additional 5 years of this savings. So, if over 5 years, $800,000 a year, that's $4 million, $4.5 million when you add them together. Again, we don't feel like we need those bells and whistles to demonstrate that your phase 1 and phase 2 program is going to pay for this debt service. And I think that one of the things that's important, it's not a financial term, but financially, we just want to make sure that the benefit, the benefit of reduced utility costs is going to outweigh the cost. I would not want to be lost on the fact that the reason why staff and us as your consultants was directed to do the project is because you wanted to standardize lighting throughout the district and improve lighting for every student in every classroom, and not just certain classrooms because there was Prop 39 money. This resolution and this financing is going to finish that job that you embarked on many years ago. So the resolution, it's great interest rate. It's a 3.07% interest rate. It's a 15-year financing. You can pay it off early after year 10. As I said, the costs are a lot less than what we initially projected, so we're happy, to pass that benefit, 100% of it, along to the district. And with the other thing the resolution does is it approves a lease purchase agreement and an escrow agreement, and it appoints your consultants, such as myself, and we had a contract prior to doing the work, but can never, you always want to dot I's and cross T's. So I think everything is there for you, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about the resolution or the financing package that we're delivering to you.
Trustee Irvin. Thank you, sir.
I just wanted to ask the question because I see the financing is being done by Bank, B-A-N-C, of America instead of B-A-N-K. So I'm assuming, well, I know it is. It's a subsidiary of B-A-N-K, right?
Correct.
Okay. They're not just trying to play a shell game or nothing.
No, it's a real company. It's their lease financing affiliate.
Okay. Thank you.
Trustee Marks.
I appreciate your explanation on the energy costs and that we didn't have that escalation in that rate in it. That helped me a lot because that was a question I was going to ask. But I do have a question because when I'm thinking about this and all these light bulbs that in 20 years are all going to need to be replaced approximately at the same time. So I don't know if any of you have done this in your home, but like they all start going out the same year after you put them in. So I just am wondering if we're planning ahead as a staff to be able to replace those light bulbs in, say, 18 years, at least have the money in the bank in 18 years, and then 19 years for the phase 2 set that we do in the second half. Because Downey Stadium, when we did the football turf there, we knew it was an initial enormous amount of money for us. I can't remember, it was like $750,000, which at the time for a football stadium, it seemed like a lot. But I just put the turf in, and I'm probably wrong, and Dwayne probably would know. But we did make a plan to replace those in 20 years. I'm in support of this, by the way. I just want to say that I'm in support of the loan and or the financial analysis and plan that we're doing. But I just wanted to know if we're going to have a plan to replace these bulbs in 20 years or less.
Another thing that we didn't mention about the financial analysis is the annual operational savings that we're going to have. One of which is we're not going to be replacing the fluorescent tubes like we do on a regular basis, and we do have a line item in the budget for those type of expenses. So absolutely, we can plan for what's going to happen 20 years from now once we determine what the cost of the LED fixtures are. But another addition to our savings is just the annual operational savings that we're going to see. It's not built in here, as Jeff pointed out. We don't need it to make this project financially viable under 4217. So we can set aside some of those dollars we're now spending on fluorescent light bulbs for that time down the road.
Okay, that's great. So are we going to do this, or is this not in the plan? Since we're doing the second half, I didn't know if the district was in it at all.
Yeah, the district office, auxiliary buildings are in the plan as well. Yes.
Good, because I think it would help our staff to be able to have their, not have the fluorescent lights.
Correct.
Thank you.
I might be able to address part of the question. Hi, I'm Sean Mick with Dennis Welliver Kelly. Jeff pointed to me a second ago. You all may remember I was the quiet, shy gentleman sitting here last week. Well, and I was very gleeful about it because my colleague Janet answered all your legal questions.
That's right.
So
yes.
I guess it's my turn this week.
Okay.
I just wanted to touch on your question from the legal aspect of it. During the 15-year term of the lease purchase agreement, the bank actually requires the district, as a routine maintenance matter, to replace any piece of equipment. So if you have a light that goes out, that needs to be replaced by the district as you go along. So that will come from the operational savings from not having to replace the older lighting.
Oh, okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's great.
Trustee Brown.
Just a quick question: Will we be, as a district, charting that true utility savings, and is that something that will be reported to us over the life of this this project?
So Johnson Controls, there is I believe it's a 2-year measurement and verification period to ensure that the cost avoided projections do what they are supposed to do. That's part of the warranty. Anytime so yes to that question, but also anytime there's a change of use in lighting or buildings or what have you, you're going to either burn more or less energy. So that does affect the actual performance guarantee. But to answer your question is yes, as part of that measurement and verification, I would expect to see a report.
If I may add to that, I mean, one thing we have to work through with Johnson Controls is any additions that we're making once this baseline calculation was made. For instance, this summer, we're planning to add air conditioning to our junior high gymnasiums. That's going to increase our load. Just on its own is going to increase our load, as well as the air conditioning we put in at our high school gymnasiums last year. So we're going to have to figure out how we can, because as Jeff pointed out, there is measurement and verification in here. JCI is not going to guarantee something they can't verify, and so we're going to have to work with them to determine, okay, what is our lighting savings, and then how much demand have we added now with other items we're doing in the district.
All right, so I'm going to jump in because Trustee Brown got to where I was going.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going there a little bit different way, but it was actually where I wanted to go. Was that if there's a measurable, it's something I'd like to be able to see and have it sort of come back like you said in a report, but on two fronts. Because the other thing you said that I found quite interesting was that after 10 years we could pay this thing off. And so if there is a measure, and it would require 6 friends, or 3 friends, preferably 6, that if we knew we were getting the savings and we started putting that away in a pot, that you could get to year 10 and just pay this thing off 5 years early and walk away and be done with it and pay it off with savings that would not just validate the savings, but you could then go back to the public and say, not only did we finance this and we pay for the finance with the savings, but we saved enough to pay it off early. If that makes sense, that's where I was driving at, because I think that builds goodwill. And it also says to us as a governing board, whoever's still here in that amount of time, gosh, that was a good call. And I guess that would be sort of my question, is how you would dovetail that report with an idea down the road that we could use those savings. Not only do we prove we made them, but we bank them and use it to get rid of the financing out the door early. Am I making sense? Or am I just playing home mortgage games? Because it's you pay an extra $100, it goes away 10 years earlier.
So I haven't seen JCI's report, but what I would imagine, and this is just me, with an imaginary slide, that, we would be able to see, what the watt usage would be at certain places compared to what it was, and the difference, based on, the current electrical rate per watt would be able to show that there was actually cost avoided. Okay. To your other question. So let's assume that everything works out exactly the way we think it does, and you save $35,000 a year for the next 15 years. At year 10, you've saved $350,000. That, I don't think you're going to be able to pay off the remaining loan, at year 10. But certainly, if there's cash available and, you decided to you wanted to, get rid of that debt at that time. I mean, you're taking monies from the general fund, essentially, future money that would be dedicated toward debt repayment, and allocating it now to get rid of it, so you would be able to get that savings over a longer period of time. But that would definitely require
it's an option.
It's an option, and it's a no-cost option.
Yeah, the first time I ever asked this question, it was about something different. I was fairly new, and we were talking about the general obligation bonds that are still out there in the high school district, because I was still thinking about that sort of home mortgage idea, right? That if we pay it off early, we'll save interest and we come out ahead and da-da-da-da. And the answer I got then was, no, you can't, John. You can't do that. And so when you said we could, it sort of piqued my interest.
It's an option. I think there is one thing, I think I've been clear on it, but I just want to state it as clear as I possibly can. Savings is not the same as revenue.
Roger. Revenue comes from the state, and we have to worry about them.
Right. This, we're trying to lower our utility bill.
So, good enough. I was just fishing. It didn't occur to me till you said it, and I'm like, oh man, there's a way to pay this off early. Get out from under some interest. Given that we've got measures D&E out there, and we're talking about other things going forward, and debt always makes me nervous as an individual. But I'm happy with the plan, just like she is, and I will support it, even though I was completely unhappy at the grocery store last night when I couldn't find a regular incandescent 75-watt GE bulb for my light bulbs. And my wife said, why'd you bring home that LED that lit up my house too late? So Trustee Irvin has a question, then we go to the community and hopefully wrap back and tag this.
Yes. So the LED bulbs are guaranteed for 20 years.
Well, that is their useful life based on the wattage of the bulb divided by your usage, essentially.
So what if estimates are wrong and they go 3/4 of them go bad in 10 years?
Well, you should get the wattage that the bulb is stated to have. So if let's say, if you burn electric 120% more, for whatever reason, maybe it's all, air conditioners that aren't efficient. Let's say you replaced your really efficient stuff with stuff that wasn't efficient, or you were operating your classes, 24 hours a day. You're going to burn more wattage quicker, and you're not going to make it to 20 years. However, you're still getting, you're still burning less wattage over a comparable period of time, which would give you the same cost avoidance that you would have had they ran for the 20 years. That make sense?
All right. I don't see any more lights. Out to the public for comment. Oh, I see the superintendent hitting the button over there.
Yeah, it's because we're voting.
Oh, we're getting ready. Oh, look at her. See, she's ahead of me. That's that 2:30 wake up. Seeing no comment from the public. Back to the board for comment. Seeing none. Looking for a motion to approve resolution, whatever the heck this was. Where'd it go?
I move approval of Resolution 1819-22.
Thank you, Vice President Marks. Looking for a second. Trustee Irvin. So we have motion a second. This is the resolution to a roll call vote. Superintendent, please.
Trustee Benz? Aye. Trustee Brown?
Aye.
Trustee Lopez?
Aye.
Trustee Marks?
Aye.
Trustee West?
Aye.
Trustee Irvin?
Aye.
President Walker?
Aye. Measure passes unanimously. Thank you, sir. Thank you for answering the questions, even my wild one. This takes us to B9. Excuse me. Approval of plan to expend low-performing student block grant funds. This feels like Miss Mack.
Modesto City Schools is the recipient of the low-performing students block grant. Students were identified as low-performing on the CAFs during the 2016-17 school year, and who are not otherwise identified for supplemental grant funding under the local control funding formula or eligible for special education services. The goal of the grant is to provide additional supports to increase their academic achievement. The funds must be expended by June 30th, 2021. Modesto City Schools will provide professional development and enhance AVID. One condition of the grant is the plan for the use of the low-performing students block grant funds must be discussed and adopted by the school board. Tonight, Educational Services requests your approval for the low-performing students block grant.
All right, thank you. Questions of board members? Trustee Irvin.
So this grant is specifically targeting individual students, right? Basically. So
the idea of the money was for identified about 400 students in 2016-17. Think about the 11th graders that are no longer in the district. So we have been given information from the state. It was voted on through Ed Code, but because those students most likely are not in the system, we can provide services through the district. And the idea is to increase in math and English language arts are the two they want us to focus on.
So these students will be identified and then provided services? Or?
No, because those students
They're
most
gone.
likely are not even in our district any longer. So they have given a open door so we can service more students, but to increase math and ELA.
So how do we now select those students? What is that criteria going to be based on? Or there's no criteria anymore?
The
'cause those students are-
criteria is open to service. They just want to make sure that we're servicing to increase our academics in math and ELA. We can look at the students. There is a criteria how they decided those students and see if we still have students in those areas. So we could identify students, but it's only a couple students per school. But they did give us a wider area to service students in math and ELA. So it does not have to be one student that was tested in 16-17 that did not do well in that CAF score.
Let me also help out here a little bit. The reality is our students at the elementary level and high school level, but I'm going to focus on the elementary district at this point, probably 90% of them are well below standards in English and math. So by focusing this dollar amount, which is not a huge dollar amount for a 3-year period in the area of professional learning relative to mathematics and AVID is another area. So we're focusing our efforts and our monies on providing professional development for teachers so they are better equipped to be able to teach all of the kids, because the majority of the kids are well below where they should be.
Yeah, because I just thought that was top heavy in the professional development, and I know we do a lot already around all of that. I was just trying to figure out how much of that is going to be to direct services in terms of that support in math, particularly to the students.
Though we do a lot of professional development in math and English language arts, our scores are still below, and so we still need to increase our scores.
And from my perspective, we don't do a lot of professional development, not to the level that you're going to see in this next 3 years. So if you think we're doing a lot now, it's going to be a windstorm here in the next couple years. At the end of the day, it's what are we doing to ensure the teachers have the tools they need to provide the environment for kids to learn. We've heard about it today with intervention centers. We need to retool and rethink the way we're doing it, not because it's a deficit model, but because we've got different kids coming into our system. So we really are going to be put a lot of energy and focus around professional development before school, during school, Saturdays, after school, summers, you name it.
Okay, and then to close that out with that is, so will there be a mechanism or processes in place where we be able to tangibly measure that and say, hey, we're putting this $340,000 into professional development. We're going to track the teachers who go through all of that and the students, and be able to say, this was the reason why we got these outcomes, because we enhanced professional development in math and English.
Can I jump in here?
I think Dr. Noguchi's mentioned her focus is to show outcomes and what is working. And if it's not working, we need to do something differently, which is we have not looked at outcomes to that level. And so that is a whole nother level that we'll be doing in the future.
All right, I'll give you some confidence here, then I'll let other folks jump in, because when we started this meeting out, I pulled item D3 and said no. I have not voted yes to support a single math curriculum since the day I set foot in here. You're going to see me vote yes for the first time ever. What we're doing with this math, if you look at it, is a different math program. We are trying something different, which is something I've been asking for 4 years here, a year and a half before I got here, and a year before I decided to get here. And so I promise you, if there's anything that gives you confidence right now, you're going to see me say yes to a math program on this dais for the first time ever. And it's going to be focused on elementary school kids. And it's interesting because I was going to say the spell checker overcorrected because it says swan and it should say swan. Because I've actually looked at the math program we're looking at. And I'm SWN, SWN. That's why I don't like autocorrect. It messes you up on your cell phone, messes you up on the agenda. I have a lot of faith, superintendent's judgment here. Have a little confidence, trust me. We are going in the right direction because we are trying something new, and our scores are terrible. And I've said that many, 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 many times in this room, which is why Marla's smiling at me, because we've got an opportunity to change something. And they are 80, 90% below grade level over there on our elementary district. They're really, we can, defying standardization. I got a lot of hope for this. I really do, and we're piloting, if I'm not mistaken. And so we're not going in with a really broad brush. We're going to go in targeting South Side elementary districts where the need is highest, where we're losing ADA the most, with an opportunity to go in with customer service and service that community that's most at need with a new program, with new professional development, with a new approach to math versus Engage New York. And then I will go back to you, then back to Cindy, then back over here.
Yeah.
Or
I just,
Trustee West.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to install some confidence.
Right. Well, I got confidence. I wasn't here in 2016, so I'm just trying to get clarification on the processes. Now that those students, like you say, are gone, what's the new plan, for that. So I got clarification on that, so I'm good.
Trustee Marks, you were on, now you're off. Are you back on?
I turned it off because of your comments.
Why? Because you were worried about me?
You kind of threw me there. Well, because I was trying to understand where SWAN came from and what the plan was, but I know how passionate you are about this. I don't need to ask any questions. I'm good.
Look at that. I'm installing confidence left and right. Trustee West.
I just appreciate training the teachers and doing PD, because I found that when you target smaller groups of students, sometimes it's effective and sometimes it's not, but you're only reaching a small number. But when you train the teachers, the whole class benefits. And so I really like that idea. I think it's an effective use of our money, and it's going to reach the broadest scope of students.
All right, I got to make mine because I was already doing that. And I'm excited. I'm going to get to vote for math. Questions from the public? Seeing none. Back to the board for comments. Seeing none. I'd like to make the motion for the first time I'm ever going to say yes on a math program. Motion, looking for a second. Trustee Brown, all those in favor say aye. Hands in the air. Aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. I have a yes vote on the table. Thank you. Outstanding. Look at that. If I get tired enough, this could get really wild here. B10, approval of the first reading of proposed revisions to board policy and review of administrative regulation, BPAR 5022, student and family privacy rights. One would think I was being targeted tonight. This was one of the top two I asked for almost 2 years ago. I feel like it's Christmas. Mr. Miller, you look like you're presenting here.
Okay. Oh, you asked for this 2 years ago? Okay. Good evening, Board President Walker, Trustees, Superintendent Noguchi, and Cabinet. The California School Boards Association has conducted a review of Modesto City Schools board policies and administrative regulations. Based on this review, Educational Services recommends approval of proposed draft of Board Policy and Administrative Regulation 5022, Student and Family Privacy Rights. This draft proposal is an update to current Board Policy and Administrative Regulation 5022. The language that you'll see tonight is based on the recommendations of the California School Boards Association. The language recommended tonight will align our policies with other districts throughout the state of California. So I'd like to turn your attention. What I'll do is I'll briefly go through these. I think you've read through them, but I'll point out some highlights. And as I said, we're not changing any of our current practices. We're just adding a lot of language that's being recommended by the California School Board Association. If we go to page B10.1, you'll see at the top the first 3 lines that are lined out or scratched out. That was our entire board policy, believe it or not.
Yep, sorry. There was a mock.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah. I had the same reaction as President Walker. So the new language that you'll see, it just goes into a lot more detail and kind of follows ed code and follows it. If you go down to the third paragraph where it says the superintendent or designee may collect, disclose, or use students' personal information for the exclusive purposes. I want to remind you there's no change to policy. They're just going to list some of the things. Our district has been very restrictive on releasing personal information. For example, you'll see later, we do not release for purposes of marketing, like Pepsi Cola. We're not going to release directory information to them. I do want to point out, because this may catch someone's eye and they may have a question about it, on number 1, college or post-secondary recruitment or military recruitment. We've always released our information to the military. Matter of fact, there's a federal law. If you don't release it, you lose some of your federal funding. So that's a long-standing practice, in case anyone noticed that and was going to ask me about it. So you'll see some areas listed. And like I say, most of what is done with our directory information is used within our district when we're developing curriculum or materials or testing resources, that kind of stuff. Let's go to page B10-2. And like I say, I'm just going to point out, go down where this paragraph saying the superintendent or designee. This is where they get really specific. And when these policies are adopted, they give you options. So one option was to release to third-party marketing companies. One was to not. Our district is choosing not to, as we never have. So there are some districts where I guess they release their directory to third-party companies, and we don't do that, just so you know. We're very strict on who can have what. The next paragraph is an interesting one. The superintendent or designee shall consult with parents, guardians regarding development of regulations pertaining to other uses of personal information, which shall at minimum address the following. So if we were to expand this, we're actually supposed to include parents in that conversation. So as we go down number 1, 2, and 3, and that's basically saying how you would disclose information, when you would disclose information. Number 3, it kind of shifts into parents inspecting any of the following. Letter A is a survey instrument. Healthy Kids Survey is coming up very shortly. If any of your children will be taking the Healthy Kids Survey, you'll get a letter in the mail, and with that letter, you can opt out. So that's just an example I wanted to give you. So certain surveys, if they have personal beliefs. Let's go on to B10.3. Instructional materials. They're talking about opting out. So they've shifted from releasing information to parents opting out of certain things. One thing that I've thought of when I see instructional materials, the video committee in our district, when you have those R-rated segments of videos you want to show in class, has to go through an entire committee. I believe it has to be board approved. On top of that, parents have a way to look at that. We send information out to all parents. They can view it. Some of the high school novels, I'm just giving you examples when it says curriculum, they can opt out. Okay, we'll move on. It's all pretty basic. Now this next, the AR was interesting because you'll see on this first page, that whole section that's lined out, it focuses specifically on Healthy Kids Survey. And then, not to jump ahead, but let's do it real quickly. Go to the back page, B10.7. The rest of it was about Healthy Kids Survey. So the entire administrative regulation was about Healthy Kids Survey. So this definitely needed to be updated. So according to School Board Association, they're talking about surveys and information. And a student or parent who's an adult or master minor shall provide prior written consent before students required to participate in a survey. So there are certain surveys where you would have to have prior written consent. The only surveys I know that we do the Healthy Kids, and LCAP doesn't even touch on these subjects, so you don't even have to do that. But if you skip ahead to page B10.5, the second paragraph, it talks about parents opting out, and that's more of a passive consent. So on that, we're going to mail a letter to every single family. They're going to have a chance to review the materials of the Healthy Kids Survey. At the bottom of the letter, there's an opt-out form. and the parents can opt out and say, I don't want my child, because they're going to see it's about drugs, alcohol. Are you bullied in school? Some people don't want their kids surveyed about that. They can opt out of the survey. And if you look down towards the bottom of the page, and they have a right to inspect the surveys. That's on number 2. I'm kind of going through quickly. It goes from passive consent to number 2 down below. They have a right to inspect the surveys. The letter's going to say they're available in my office. You can come by and see them. They're available to look at. And the final thing at the bottom, the last paragraph down there, no child to be penalized for not participating. So that's kind of the main theme of this whole AR. It's pretty basic. It's exactly what we've been doing. I've been in the district since 1991. That's exactly how we've handled surveys, although we didn't really have it written like this. This is written nicely. The very last, page 10.6, gets into examinations. And the first paragraph, the only main physical examinations I know of are the sports physicals that go on in the schools. And it talks about invasive physical examinations cannot be allowed without prior written consent. So there has been a lot of good language added. And at the beginning of the school year, down where you see parent guardian notifications where it's crossed out, that sentence says the beginning of the school year, superintendent designee shall notify parents or guardians of all these. That's, once again, our parent information handbook. We have those 3 or 4 pages where all these parent notifications are included every year. They just need to sit and take, 5 minutes and read through all of them. It's a lot of good information. And if we go to the last page, the very before you see the healthy kids lines where they're all scratched out, parents or guardians shall be notified of any substantive change in this policy and administrative regulation. Well, to me, a huge change would be if we decide we do want to start releasing to marketing companies. You'd have to involve parents and get them involved in that before you could do a big change like that. So I don't anticipate, like Dr. Nuke, as you said, I'm retiring in June, so I won't be here. But I don't think I will see us trying to make money off some private company by releasing directory information to people. Okay, with that, any questions?
Trustee Marks.
So I just have a few questions on B10.5. I appreciate the new board policy, and these will have to, my questions have to do with the administrative regulation. So I had one question on the third paragraph. It says, if the district administers a voluntary survey that already includes questions pertaining to sexual orientation and or gender identity, the superintendent or designee shall not remove such questions. So do we already do these questions? Are they in the surveys?
That I know, we don't have any surveys that go there. That's just education code, and California School Boards is saying that code needs to be in this policy. But our district, I don't know of any surveys that talk about that.
Right.
So they're saying you couldn't, if you already had it, you can't go in and pull it out now.
Right.
That's the way I read that.
Yes.
So that's just showing you an education code that's in the books. It's part of Ed Code.
So I didn't know.
We have to follow Ed Code. So
But I think he's right, because I think what you're getting at is, do we already have it? And I think you're
really
right.
decide anything.
If I'm not mistaken, we just do the health class in high school. You got the junior high class. That's not a survey. We're out of K through 6, which means it's just sort of, if I'm making sense here.
Trustee Marks, I'm not aware of any that ask those questions at this time.
I think the Healthy Kids Survey does. I think the older grade, I think it's 7 or 8, I think that there is a couple questions in there as far as your sexual orientation.
Yeah.
But
so I'm looking at this as a recommendation from CSBA. So as past president of CSBA,
okay,
I know a lot about CSBA.
Okay.
So, and I agree with a lot of what CSBA promotes and puts in written form. I don't agree with everything, and that's why it's a suggestion, not a you have to do it this way. So when I see stuff that says, oh, if this isn't something that we're already doing, why do we have it in the AR? So that's why, and this one does start with if, so I appreciate that it has an if. So I could see that. I'm fine with seeing that. So then my next question is, about the next page on examinations.
10.6.
Yes, 10.6. So you stated that right now we only do sports physicals, correct? So and we do
That I'm aware of.
hearing, vision, scoliosis screening.
Well,
I believe we
okay.
do all those. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. So sports and those.
But they were talking about invasive physical, like
Right.
you're touching
So-
their private areas. And
So right. So that's where I said, so does this need to be in here? It's USC. I don't know what that stands for. I know it's Ed Code is. So I believe that's federal law. So when I reread this, I said, could it be possible that we could delete the first sentence after examinations and then start the next sentence, take out however, and say, no student shall be subjected to a non-emergency invasive physical examination without prior written notice to his or her parent or guardian unless an applicable state law authorizes the student to provide consent without parent guardian notification. Because the way the first sentence says, it said they may administer. So to me, if I'm in it, to me that gives you the ability to do it, and if I abide by the law, then I can do it. And I preferred it to say especially if a parent wants to read the administrative regulation and know what our school district's practice is, then they could see that, no, my student's not going to be subjected to a non-emergency invasive physical examination without my prior written consent. So my ask is that we could delete the first line, take out the however, and then keep the whole last part of that. So, and then when it says, it defines what an invasive physical examination is. So for parents to know what does the law say, I agree with that. I just would like to have the may administer taken out, because that made me, if I'm a parent of a student and I see that, I'm like, oh, wait a minute, why are your administrators doing this? Or why are you saying this is okay, not administrators, but why are you saying this is okay in your school district? So that was my only change on this document.
I would agree with you. Make that 2. I think that clears. I don't think that's an unreasonable change. Just defines what it is. No student should be subjected to a non-emergency.
All the way where it says California law.
It's
and
only
then
the
take out the
first
word
sentence.
however.
First sentence and however.
Yep. That's all that I asked.
And it goes bye-bye, and it's much clearer. It's less fuzzy.
No, I'm not an attorney, but I think we need to strike out the, you're only listing partial health code. So to cite the health code and not really have the whole thing there, I don't think that's...
I'm believing this is a summary of the health code. After reading some of these, I don't know if
Yes.
you've read them, but they're pages long, some of
Yeah,
them.
no, I think it's referring to the U.S. code, so that's going to be more than a paragraph. That's going to be a book, and
Okay.
we'll have
So
to go
leave
get
it in
Roman.
there. See, that's where it's coming from. So let's just start out with no student. Okay. Anything else? Does the board vote on that, or is that, do I?
When we come back for the second.
Oh, then you'll tell me if we're doing it. Okay.
Right.
No, I just have a question. I mean, if it's a summary, but if that means that the first sentence is a summary of the whole ed code, so wouldn't it need to be there just for?
It might be and it might not be, but I think as a school district and as school board members, we're allowed to set our own policy and state and law as long as it's abiding. So to me, it's still abiding by the law, but we don't have a practice that we are doing this to our students. So I'm just saying, we're just affirming of what the state law says. No student shall be subjected to a non-emergency invasive physical.
Without prior notification, which doesn't seem unreasonable to me as a parent. I'm going to want that phone call to ring. I think it takes out the ambiguity. All right. Anyone else? Only question I have, I think, on this one is, when is that, and it may not apply here, but it does get into sort of third parties. When is that technology report sort of due back? Because we have a technology review.
We're having them printed as we speak.
See? Because I think I'm good with this the way it is, because I've wanted this forever, for years. I would say that my next one, which goes with this, is sort of a companion here, is 5145.6, which is the parental notifications. They sort of go hand in hand. Is that when we get the technology sort of report back, we look at that part where it says that when we enter into contracts with any of our vendors and software applications that we're using in the classrooms, that it's clear that at no point are we leaking information to third-party vendors and data collecting. And that may be an upgrade to this, it may not, but let's revisit that then. And that may be a place we come back and touch this at some point in the future. But I think, as you mentioned to me when I asked you about it, Superintendent, you wait for that report to come back, and then let's revisit that then. But this is certainly a good first step, and this is the first time I've ever heard somebody besides me say opt out in the boardroom. I'm just excited. I felt like I was lonely. Now I feel
There's
better.
two of us now.
So, because I told, was it Dr. Jason, the only survey my daughter's ever taken was his. Because we say no to everything. So, if there's no more other questions from the board.
I just have one other small edit.
Cindy.
Okay.
Small edit was to move the word health. It's on page B10.5. I think the title of the next page is supposed to be health examinations.
Let me see.
So B10.5, and it's the word at the end of the sentence at the bottom of the page is a period, and then it's like the cursor didn't get pushed to return, and so it needs to go to the next page.
So it should say health examinations.
Health examinations. That's what I believe it's supposed to say, is health examinations at the top of the page.
Yeah, that should be part of the title on
That's
the
what I
second.
thought,
Yeah,
yes.
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good catch.
No worries. Thank you, Ed, for another report.
All right.
See, your last one you got to do twice. It's like,
Well, unless you ask for more board policies, then I'll be back. Otherwise, this might be my last one.
I might come up with just one or two more just to bring you back because we love you. No.
The public in the back.
We'll do the last one with the barbecue. So, seeing no more lights, questions and comments from the public. Seeing none, back to the board for comments. Seeing none, looking for a motion to accept VP 5022 and AR 502 for first reading.
So so I just want to make I'm happy if you do, if you just make it with the edit that we made, the motion. Okay, so I'll just make the motion to approve the AR as is, except for deleting the first sentence on page B10.6 and the word however.
And looking for a second?
It is the administrative regulation. It's the board policy I was fine with. I didn't have any edits to the board policy. Okay, I just had the edit to the AR.
All right, so I have a second from Student Representative Benz, who's going to protect her students' privacy. All those in favor say aye. Hands in the air. Aye. BP 5022 first reading passes unanimously. All right. B11, a time to get me in trouble. Approval of the vote for no more than 2 candidates for the CSB Delegate Assembly for 2019. I believe the last time we did this, I'm 0 for 2 here. This is my third shot. I believe Trustee Mark said that what we do is we do 1, not 2, correct? Because if we vote for 2, it waters it down. Isn't that what you told me last time? Why don't you lead?
I did. So, yes, so in doing this, there's 5 candidates, I believe, that are running for the Delegate Assembly. 2 will be elected. You can have 2 votes. But like I did last time, I said we could just do 1 vote and do a target, I don't know. I can't remember the terminology, but it's...
Reduces my risk.
Yes, it's target voting. So if there's any, you can ask for any comments, and then when we get around to it, someone could make the motion to just nominate John Walker as the person we'll vote on.
I see no more lights here. Anybody out in that full audience looking to comment on the CSBA election of a delegate? Seeing none, back to the board for comments. Oh, shoot, Trustee Lopez.
So, is this a 1 vote per district or 1 vote per board member?
It's the whole. I think it's the whole board votes.
The board
and
each
so each
board in our county gets a ballot, and on the ballot they mark who we as a board vote for.
Okay, so let's say we go for Mr. Walker. Right. It would be 1 vote instead of 7 votes, right?
Yes.
It's always 1 vote. It's just, are we going to vote for me and somebody else or just me?
Right.
And they'll tally them.
Okay.
And
great.
so I believe, yeah.
That's right. And we have to send in the red ballot. It always has to be the red ballot. I know because I've had to count these before, and people didn't send in the red ballot, and they don't get counted. So.
And then at one point I did ask, and I got a response back. because I did pursue CSBA quite actively, asking why we did not have an automatic delegate. We're still having that debate. We're going around in circles, but I now have a set of the standard rules. I have all their bylaws, and we're looking at how we count the votes and delegates through the state, and it'll be another debate for another day. But there's at least a dialogue going on. So, Trustee Irvin.
So, is there 2 delegate slots?
Yes.
So
All right.
Stanislaus County actually has 3 delegates, and so we have 2 in this year, and then next year there's another seat open. So that's
They're staggered.
another opportunity to vote. So every year there's an opportunity to vote for delegates in our county.
All right, so no lights for community. We're back to the board looking for a motion. Trustee Marks, you.
Okay, then I'll make the motion to for John Walker to be the delegate for CSBA.
And I will second.
Have a second. Trustee West, all those in favor say aye. Raise your hands. Aye. Passes unanimously. Woo. All right. I got to stop getting up so early in the morning. Really tired. I believe that gets us down. I got to flip my thing back over. Okay, this is, I don't know what number it is. Meetings attended by other board members since the last meeting. Trustee West.
Well, mine wasn't a board meeting, but I went to the Johansson 8th grade parent night and was so impressed with the students that were, they had tables all around the room, and the students were representing all the different clubs and activities, and just impressed with the students and with the, just with the parents that attended and the way the whole night was run. I thought it was a very interesting night.
Trustee Brown.
Yes, I also attended a 8th grade night by our high school, and really appreciated the informative presentation that was made there. And this morning I attended a meeting with Dr. Noguchi and Roger Ort, and it was the Education Partnership Collaborative Group. And we met with folks from the county and the state and the city of Modesto regarding safe routes to schools and progress that's being made with regard to safe sidewalks. We learned about what's happening. We read about in the newspaper the other day about what's happening in the Orville Wright neighborhood. We also found out that we are on track for some definite sidewalk improvements for safe passage to Henshaw and Bret Hart. So exciting things happening there, and we were able to connect with the people that are of influence and can help us with ways that we can continue to focus on making sure that we have those safe routes for students at all of our campuses, and uncovered a few ideas about how we can make some improvements in addition to the things that were there. And nice connections are made at that with that group, so that we're going to be at the table with those players in helping to guide those decisions. So really effective meeting.
Yeah, that's good.
Thank you, sir. Trustee Lopez.
Yes, well, I was at the 8th graders night at Modesto High, and then at their back to school night as well. Got to meet or revisit a lot of old teachers out there, and then got to see the awesome work that the students are doing, and really sold Modesto High for the 8th graders. Last week I also attended a meeting in South Modesto with South Modesto Partnerships. They just came together and talked about all the great work that they were doing and at the same time the work that they wanted to do this year. I also went to the South Modesto Business United, which has a lot of things going on. Like they have the Cinco de Mayo Day Parade coming up in May. So they're also doing a lot of great work. And tomorrow we'll be meeting again around safe routes to school. So getting more information around that and see how we can, really be a partner in it. So that's my report.
Thank you, sir. Come back. Trustee Marks.
Oh,
I'm working left to right here.
okay, that's fine. So, got to see John Irvin in his great play and Raisin in the Sun, a fabulous play on Saturday at the Gala Center. I know a few of you have seen it, but I got to see him actually in action up there, and I know a lot of work went into that. I appreciated it. I wish our students could see it, but I know there were a few students at that event at the Gala Center. So appreciate your skills and ability to present to our community like that, and just it was really special. It was really special. So, and then I also took a trip with for Cal SSD with Dr. Noguchi and Mr. Herbst and Mr. Zerly, and we always get a lot of great information there about what's happening in our state. And after Gavin Newsom was elected, they kind of give us, what's happening. And State Board of Ed gave us a report, someone from there. So it always helps to have and of course, people from CSBA gave us a report. It just helps to have all the dialogue in here, what's happening in the state as it relates to education, and what may or may not be happening that might affect us as a school district. And as we come together, and that's a lobbying group, so they go into Sacramento and try to at least take some of the ideas back that we talk about in those rooms. So I appreciated having our staff there to be able to hear some of the special ed things that are coming, and the pre-K and the kindergarten or TK expansion. So it's really, really helpful to know that. So thanks for allowing me to go with you and be part of that team up there that day.
Trustee Irvin.
Yes, I attended 8th grade Parent Night at Davis High School. Was there. A chance to meet some staff and parents and students, and then I scurried over to Elliott.
Oh, nice.
And so I went over to Elliott and got a chance to meet some wonderful parents and some staff there and students there, and actually closed out the night over there at Elliott talking with Mr. Houck and vice principal and the staff over there about Elliott. So had a good time over there. Felt like a rock star, celebrity when I came over there. So, hey. And then I took a tour with Yamilet. Validity. The Healthy Start site over at Henshaw over there with the new dental clinic they have over there, which is state of the art over there. My goodness. And now they're trying to work on a plan for the medical side to be expanded. So it was really nice to see that, because Henshaw is where I got my start back in '98 over there. So I'm very familiar with the Healthy Start. So it's nice to see the growth and the number of families and students that they see in the community, and how vital that project is to the community over in South Modesto. So yeah, I had a good time.
Hey, I did 8th grade at Enoch's, packed house. I actually ended up not listening. I ended up helping them load up chairs. We were dragging chairs out of both sides of both doors, and I think by the time we left, we finally got everybody seated, and it was over into the gym. Lots of folks, lots of parents, lots of engagement. Again, literally standing room only. Lots of good conversations with different folks that night. Then back for, I think last year I talked about the same thing, that Mr. Johnson teaches computer science over at Enoch's. And so he had his computer science fair night. And we went to that, and that was again full. Lots of students, lots of student presenters talking about the computer science program, the AP classes. I believe if you haven't seen it yet, he at least said he's going to pitch a course to you guys to approve. They're talking about adding some cybersecurity programming courses over there if they can get that done. Hispanic coding club, girls coding club. There was a boy talking about getting the cybersecurity. There, lot of good stuff going on there with that program. And I think last year I mentioned that it's not a class. It's a program. And I think there's a difference. I think it's like when I sort of look at, you have a course that you teach versus something that's got 120 plus kids in it. And he's done a really good job. And I noticed that Modesto High is now teaching computer science. And I believe Downey, there was 2 other schools I thought they said. But that was more than last year, which means at least we're creeping. It's a tough one to fill because where do you get the teachers from? And I think that was still the challenge that I think every district faces in sort of building those programs up. But it was a good night. Good to see kids involved. Lots of music, lots of interaction. It's neat to see the women and the young girls and the young ladies talk about their club and what they're doing together and sort of breaking that threshold that folks say that they don't do science, math, and technology because they're girls, but they are. And they've got their own club and they're rocking and rolling and excited about it. Well done, Will. Good night. That's all I got. Trustee Brown.
If Trustee Newman were here, I'm sure that she would tell us that she attended a homecoming event at Modesto High School.
Oh, that's right.
And she would be certain to congratulate our own Trustee Benz for wearing the crown as homecoming queen at Modesto High School. Had to embarrass you a little bit.
And I think she also did back to school night at Johansson, if I'm not mistaken. Or at least I remember seeing her on the list for that. So with that being said, anybody got future agenda items they want to place on the future agenda? Seeing none, that comes to adjourning the meeting. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. Trustee Benz, looking for a second? Trustee Irvin, adjourn. I need a nap.
Thank you, John. You made it.